All right, it's 2:30 sharp in Malaysia timing. We will start the sessions right now. A very good afternoon to everyone here. Welcome to our regional Tutor Virtual Conference 2020, where these webinar sessions, Sean, our tutor guru, will be covering the exam focus for Advanced Performance Management paper. Just a quick reminder for students who have yet to renew your student membership, please do so by accessing your MyACC account. A quick run through for our webinar house rules. If let's say you have any questions during the sessions, feel free to post your questions in the chat box only and make sure it is sent to all panelists and attendees. So without further ado, I shall pass the stage to Sean.
Thank you, Ryan. And hello, everyone. I hope you're well. Welcome to the session. My name's Sean Purcell. I may have had a chat with you on the first session, but I'm also aware some of you were here just as you were taking the exam in Advanced Performance Management. So I've done a session already for those students who were thinking about doing Advanced Performance Management, but I believe the people that are tuning in today, or I'm assuming anyway, doesn't matter if you're not, but that's my assumption of this presentation. You're taking the exam in September, and I'm here to make sure that you pass it. Yep. The key aim of this session is to ensure you pass your APM exam in September. Before I tell you a little bit more about me, I would like you to tell me where you are, where you're from, and what are you doing right now. As Ryan said, I want to make this a very interactive session, and the best way that we can communicate with each other is through the chat box. So there are other options, I know, Q&A, but if you just communicate via the chat box, and if you can just let me know where you're from, what's your name? Well, I tell you what would be a good start, and I'll write it down just to make sure I deal with everything that you want from me. And my pen's just run out. But if you could tell me so I'm giving you a couple of minutes, just tell me, what are you wanting from this course? What can I do for you? I've obviously prepared something, and that's based on my experience of what students need, but I'm also here to serve you, and so therefore I want to deliver what you want. Faye just wants to pass. All right, I'm just sorry, I had a pen all prepared and my pen has run out, so I'm just going to get another pen so I can write down these things, because I appreciate it. It's important that I record this. So just give me 1 second while you're thinking, and put things in the chat box. Sorry about that. The reason I'm doing this is because I just want to hold myself to account. So, Faye, just want to pass. Let me have a look here. So, SOCOM, how to interpret questions. Let me write this down. Where are we from, Faye, SOCOM? So, how to interpret questions. We've got what should I be looking at, and what should I do in the next 3 weeks? From Faye. Thank you, Faye. I have a hard time dealing with models and business terms. Okay, I think just while we're putting a few more in the box, Faye, I think if you're having a hard time dealing with models and business terms, I think it's a really good idea to get familiarity with the publications that the ACCA produce for you. So you will hopefully maybe are looking into professional insights. Do you look at the professional insights that the ACCA publish? If you read Student Accountant, you should have a look at that as well. That's really important. Sorry, it's all going wrong here. My plug's just fallen out. Let me just plug it back in. So in terms of that aspect of it, that would be my advice there, if I'm really honest, Faye, because if you get used to reading the terms, they just become natural to you. So make sure you do that. What else have we got? We've got Thiru. I would know more on the question verbs. Okay, and the exam technique. Okay, exam technique and verbs. I will go through a couple of questions just to demonstrate what I'm talking about. So we're going to do that. What else do we have? Where are you based, Thiru? Faye's in Malaysia. Whoa, Sokham's in Cambodia. Welcome, Sokham. I haven't had anyone from Cambodia yet. Sayazwan from KL. APM's your last paper, so I just want to pass this paper as it's quite difficult studying part-time. Okay. So question focus. Well done, passing all the other papers. Sayazwan, I'm going to make sure you pass APM and give you the key things you need so that you can pass it. So you're in the right place. So great. One thing I would say, Sayazwan, have you done the ethics and professional skills module? If people haven't done that, I know the exam is getting close now. It's only going to take a few evenings and it's a fairly relaxed thing to do. I think that gets your brain in the right place. So if you haven't done it, I wouldn't leave it till the end. I would do it before the exam. Fu is interested in the syllabus changes. There's not massive syllabus changes, Fu. It's not so technical. What specific syllabus changes are you worried about, Fu? Steffi, yeah, how to give value. I'll talk about some of the examiner's reports. Okay, deal with that, no problem. We've talked about verbs. Shah Alam, Thiru's from. Annie, hello Annie. Australia. I want to know how to manage the time to finish. Oh, yep, okay, no problem, Annie. It's a really important one, that. I mean, at the strategic professional level, you've probably had to demonstrate this on other exams. You can only take the I'll talk a bit of on the timing, Annie, so it's really important, that one. Jocelyn from Selangor, how to pinpoint keywords. Okay. Yep, I will do that. Pinpoint keywords. No problem at all. Artie, hello Artie. Another person from Ma Aji from Cambodia. Yeah, I would get on with it pretty soon, Sayazwan. I would try and get on with it in the next few days. Unfortunately, you get charged for it. But you don't want to be doing it in the 2 weeks before the exam. It just conditions your brain to be in the right place. Okay, Fatin, welcome. That's all we've got so far in terms of. I know there's quite a few of you online here. you're here live. The best thing about being live is you can pick my brains live. Some people might listen to this on recording, and hello, and I hope you're well. But if you have the opportunity to be here live, you can ask me direct questions that you're worried about, and I can help you with them. So if you are here live, I would encourage you to tell me, what do you want from me? Why are you here? And I'm here to help you. Choozy, hi Choozy. I wish to know which areas and which materials should we focus on, because there are too many materials to study in these 3 weeks. Yeah, well, if we're leaving it for the last 3 weeks, Tuesday, that is quite a lot of work. And you know, you have to have a good overview. If I'm honest, if you want me to say learn chapter 4, learn chapter 6, 7, 8, number 12, and number 15, I would be misleading of you if I said that. So you need to, I'll talk a bit about how you can get yourself organized. We're moving into the revision stage now. So in terms of our notes and what we have, yeah, well, what do you need to do in the last few weeks? Which papers? Uh, I mean, the papers, if you're familiar with the papers, you will see that a lot of what's contained is repeated many times over. So it's, you know, we're at the strategic professional level. It's not, this is a chip, that's a chip, that's a chip. It's a bit different at strategic professional level. It's not a technical exam, it's an applied exam. And it's not really testing your technical knowledge. You've proven that at PM. It's testing your application of it. But yes, we will have a look at that, Joling. So, okay, that's thank you for all those people that have replied there. You know, we've got 4 hours, but we won't necessarily use 4 hours. I mean, the 4 hours is there to allow me to have lots of time to answer your questions and queries and to help you. But it's obviously going to be very influenced by the fact if you do question and query me. Yeah, so the time is there for you. The ACCA have put this session on to help you. So please take advantage of it. Let's see if there's anyone else. So, okay. In terms of the participants that are here, if that's all you want from me, I can deal with that fairly fairly easily. I'm just seeing if there's anything I've missed out there. It doesn't seem many questions out of all the people who are here, but that's fine. But I would encourage you to get everything you can from me. So let me continue. So I'm Sean Purcell, and as I say, here to make sure you pass the APA exam. If I give you a brief overview of my background, I've been involved in this working with the ACCA at strategic professional level for 20 odd years. Yep, and have done a lot of work around the world for the ACCA, helping both students and tutors get the most out of the ACCA papers. My background, well, as a tutor, I was one of the founding shareholders of the organization that is now Kaplan in the UK. What else can I tell you about myself? I'm currently the UK Lecturer of the Year, and I've been runner-up for that on a couple of occasions. And in addition to helping students pass APM exams, I also work as a management consultant with a lot of big organizations dealing with many of the issues advanced performance management throws up. So hopefully I can bring some interesting anecdotes to our time together. The overall objective of me being here is to make sure you can be successful in the APM exam. That's what I'm here to do. In terms of my knowledge of Asia, well, to be honest, I've been coming to Malaysia probably before some of you are even born. And my memory of KL would be the Bas Mini. My memory of, I set one of the first tuition colleges up in Malaysia in Jalan Pudu, just opposite the Swiss Garden Hotel, Emil Wolf Colleges, many moons ago. I've worked on the MARA program with Malaysian students in the UK, Yeah, I remember KL when the Petronas Towers didn't exist. What else do I remember about? The only shopping centre was Lot 10. If any of you can think back that far. And yeah, it's sad because of the current situation. I can't be with you here in person, but you know, chat to me in the chat box, and yeah, that would be great, so that we can communicate more easily. And the other thing I'm really encouraging of you to do is just keep asking me questions. If you've got a query on anything I say, just jump in. Yep. I'll also give you some time at the end, but yeah, just jump in, ask me some questions, and on anything at all, and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, so that's me. That's my background. In terms of how are we going to put together the session, well, in terms of what we're going to do, I'm going to begin by giving you a bit of an overview of APM and what's behind it, what the thought is, so that you can make sure your answers are relevant to how the examining team is thinking. Just to give a brief overview of the format and style, talk about what a good student needs to show so that they can succeed in the APA exam, talk about why people fail it. That's based on, you know, working with the ACCA over many years, and I will also demonstrate how a student dealing with exam questions can get the most out of a question. So we'll talk about that and do some practical examples. And then I want to talk to you about what you need to do over the next 3 or 4 weeks. All right, so that is the agenda. That's where we're going to go. Does that seem okay for everyone? Got a couple of things. Hasley, oh, okay, yes. I've just got a question from, and I'll deal with your questions at appropriate moments. So let's have a look. Haslisa says, the more I practice a revision quick practice questions, well done for doing that. It's important that we do that. I'm worried about answering the question as it feels heavy. I'm not quite sure what you mean by heavy. How to be well prepared for the exam. Well, I'm going to talk all about that now, Haslisa, so don't you worry. We're going to deal with all of that. Everyone else is okay. I've got a from Chen, so thank you. Oh, we're starting to chat now. We're starting to chat, a few of you. So please be confident to chat to me. Okay. All right, great. Good. Okay. So let's begin. So we're talking about areas of focus for the Advanced Performance Management exam. And what you need to remember is the Advanced Professional Management exam is it's a strategic professional level exam. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Well, what that exam is going to be looking at, it's going to be looking for you to demonstrate skills that would be more appropriate in the working environment. Yep. So that this is more than would be required at the PM exam. So in PM, you're required to maybe apply given techniques to short scenarios. It might ask you to calculate, I don't know, a mix yield or variances. And yeah, you are asked to maybe interpret those variances at PM. But the scenarios in PM are quite short, and the questions are pretty clear what you're supposed to do. In contrast, an APM question, particularly the Section A questions, you will need to be able to digest and read and cross-connect information from much longer scenarios. Yep. So can you see the much bigger picture is one of the key skills needed to be demonstrated on APM. And one APM question was probably going to focus on several different parts of the syllabus. So those of you saying which parts of the syllabus, what are the tips? You'd be foolish to focus. You've got to have a good broad understanding of the whole syllabus, because questions tend to not just focus on one area, they tend to jump into several parts, and you can't view each topic as a separate box. So some of you were kind of saying, which boxes do I need to learn for the exam? You really have to appreciate how they're all linked together. The reason for that is that's how it is in real life. You know, in the workplace, you're going to be asked to talk about not just one area. You're going to have to connect. Synthesis is a word used quite a lot. I mean, just going back to PM, yes, a lot of the PM knowledge is very useful in APM, but a much higher skill is required at APM. Yeah, as there's much more application of your knowledge required. So I think, as I was saying to one of you before, you were a bit not happy with some of the terms. If you can read around the subject a little bit more, and also practice past exam questions to keep up to speed with the terminology, that's going to really help you. Yep. Someone was talking about study materials. I hope in your preparation, you're only using official ACCA study materials. Yep. So in terms of the materials, that would be Kaplan and BPP. Really important that you don't use non-official ones, because you're going to be wasting your time on things that really haven't been approved and can't be guaranteed for their content. So yeah, make sure you do that, and also have a look at all the great stuff that's available on the ACCA website. There's masses of fantastic resource there. The key thing, if you're just repeating what you've seen in your study manuals in an APM exam, that's not really going to satisfy the examiner's requirements. Yep, you need to understand, appreciate the issues, and then have a little bit of a think about them. Practice past exam questions dealing with different areas, and that's going to help you develop what I would say would be a critical analysis skills. Yep. You also don't try to learn everything, have a broad knowledge of the syllabus. And I'd say it's much better to have a broad knowledge of the entire syllabus than perfect knowledge of 60% of it and not know the other bits. Yep. So yeah, they are the key areas of focus. There's lots of technical articles on the ACCA website relating to APM, and I would suggest they're essential reading. Yeah, you might not like me saying that, but they're essential reading. And you know, the exam is, I would say, more advisory. Yeah, it's not doing the technical stuff. It's more advising and adding value to that stuff. Okay, and if you can relate to real life examples in not just ACCA professional insights, but business journals, you know, try and read it one article a day or something like that, just one, and it's going to help you. The other thing that we should start to be doing, one of the key reasons of failure, as I'll talk to you later, and some of you have flagged this up, is time management. And the only way to make sure that you are good at time management is to test yourself to time. Yeah. So if you don't practice things to time, you're going to be in a big advantage in the exam hall. Yeah. So please, please, please make sure you do that. I would also just, you know, remind you that what we're going to look at is not so much the technical stuff. Yep. The technical stuff is more likely to be examined at performance management, and it's the application of it and understanding of it. So just to finally, you know, reiterate, it's about having a broad knowledge, Okay. I don't know, I've got, whoa, Thiru's come in. I've been talking a lot there, so let me have a look. Another question. We actually have quite a number of past year papers for APM. I myself have access until June 12 exam. Is the old question still relevant? Well, yes, there has been slight syllabus updates, but you know, as I say again, Thiru, it's not kind of zoom, narrow. It's about you understanding the performance management issues and you giving some opinion on them, and you are able to, yes, that's a technical evaluation. That's what the calculations say. But of course, there are other issues that we should be aware of. So, you know, there's obviously changes in the environment in 2020 than there were in 2012. I mean, technology and data has become much bigger in terms of helping us in performance management. So the syllabus questions have evolved to reflect more of that. But, you know, to say to me, which year should we actually start practicing? I think if you're looking back to 2012, much of what they're trying to, you know, the broad syllabus there is still, you know, fairly applicable. I mean, I think the best way in which you can do that is if you go onto the ACCA website, they will have all the papers published there, which, you know, they still think are relevant. So yeah, there's quite a bit. If you go on there, you can see. So yeah, I would look, my advice to you through, if you're worried about spending time on questions that are no longer relevant, all of the past exam papers that are on the ACCA official website are going to be very useful and helpful in preparing for your APM exam. Okay. So I would do that. I wouldn't be looking at non-official study material, because they can do what they want. They have no accountability. They're not approved. They're not official, and therefore they can do what they want. And you might then, if you're not using official material, I'm afraid you are going to be spending time on things that aren't potentially relevant. Yeah, so that's what I would say there through. Margie, there's also a change. Well, when you say there's a change in the examiner, there's actually not one examiner anymore. Because the exams take place 4 times a year, so there's an examining team. So there's not just one person writing the exam. There's an examining team. So I'm not quite sure who's told you there's a change in the APM examiner. Slightly changed, but it hasn't changed a lot. I think students, the main problem with APM is students think it's a numbers paper. They think it's PM. It's not PM, it's APM. And that requires you to, I mean, the future of work is going to be dominated by machines that can do all the calculations that come up in PM. Okay, and I suppose we have to have knowledge of those things. But at APM, it's asking us to take that information and consider it and evaluate it in the context of real life, in the context of the workplace, in the context of the challenges. And we will know about real life, the workplace, the challenges, because we are interested in it because we read around a little bit. So a strategic professional doesn't want a robot who learns technical stuff and spits it out. They want someone that can consider the information and give their interpretation of it and their opinion of it. Okay, because that's what I want in the workplace as an employer. I don't want a robot. In fact, I've got a robot and it's a computer. Yeah, and ACCA have responded to what industry wants. So as a quick summary, what the examining team wants. Yes, APM builds on PM knowledge, but it applies it more in much longer, more complex scenarios. You are supposed to create your own information and interpretation from all the detailed information given. It doesn't provide it to you on a plate like it does more so at PM level, and you need to add value to the information. Yeah, that's what you're there to do. Hopefully that just confirms things. In terms of how it all links together, well, again, you will know this if you're at an advanced stage of your studying, but just to show the difference, it probably, you know, you might have started or you might have got exempt from management accounting technique. So yes, it will kind of assume some knowledge there. And then at the applied skills level, you got involved in performance management. Yeah, there was some application at the performance management level, but as I say, at the strategic professional level where advanced performance management sits, it's takes a step further again. And I think the words about the numbers are equally, if not more important than the numbers. Yep, so you need to be aware of the numbers, but you must be able to kind of understand and contextualize those numbers much more. Okay, so that's just, as I'm sure you know, but I'm just building up to where we're going to go. In terms of what resources would I be expecting you to use? Well, if you're using materials, I think you must be using official ACCA approved material. And at present, the published books are only produced by BPP and Kaplan, and you're wasting your time if you're using anything else. Yeah, and I think the core thing for your preparation and your revision would be APM study materials from official sources. Yep, you should be now looking at exam kits, and a lot of you are saying, I'm looking at the exam kit. That's fantastic. But there are lots of past exams available on the ACCA website as well. So it's not about learning, remember, it's not about learning everything parrot fashion. And as I said to you before, repeating what's in your study materials is not going to really satisfy the examining team. Yep, so try and understand and appreciate the issues and think around them. Yep, and then you're going to practice past papers. So the things that I suggest you need to have a good look at, you've hopefully had a good look at that, but the examiner's article is based on what the examiner has seen, or the examining team has seen over many years of students not doing the right thing. We need to look at the resource on reading the requirements. How can we improve our APM answers? And then a more general, how do we pass strategic professional? And really the way we pass strategic professional is using the techniques that I've been saying to you already. It's applied. Think about the workplace. Yeah, how would I behave in the workplace? Okay, just a couple, just before I go on to the next slide. Kelvin, put yourself as a manager. When you attempt the questions as the top management is more interested to know how you apply the theory, then yes, I agree with you, Kelvin, exactly. So there's some resources that we need to look at. Other resources you might want to consider. Professional marks are part of strategic professional exams, so there's an article on that. Have a look at that. I think the ethics and professional skills module, if you haven't done it, is absolutely key, because it just gets your mind in the right place. It gets you to think in the right way for all strategic professional exams, but I think particularly SPL and APM. Obviously, we're looking at past exam questions, but more importantly, we should be looking at examiner reports. And you'll see, if you look at those examiner reports, that the examiner says the same things again, and again. So it's obvious that students just don't read them. Students just don't take what the examiner says on board. And your examiner will keep going back to questioning those areas until students can prove that and demonstrate that they're okay. Yeah, there's a little article on that as well. All of this can be found on the ACCA website. Things, as I say, that have changed over, if someone's going back to 2012, well, big data, but big data is more than just the 3 E's. Yes, how does it impact on performance management? Increasingly in the workplace, technology can do much more analysis for us, and that gives us with a much bigger volume of information, which creates opportunity, but also creates problems because it's just too much. So we need to, work out what we can automate and how we respond to the various things automated data tells us. There's another great article in 2 parts on how IT is developing and the impact it has on performance management. And there's also an article on how we read the mind of the marker. So if you haven't read those articles, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, they're all must reads. Yep. So have we read those articles? Just give me some feedback. Have you read them, or do they make sense? Have you got any queries on them? No comments? Yeah, what you have to appreciate is, why do you think the ACCA have these articles on their website? For a bit of fun? No, they have them there to help you pass the exam. And I kind of get a little frustrated with students who get upset that they don't pass the exam. And then I say, well, so you read those articles, didn't you? Says, oh, no. So how have you been preparing? Oh, I've been looking at this site, which is not an official site of the ACCA. So they've been spending all their time on some online tuition provider who has not got the blessing of the ACCA. And to make it even worse, they haven't read the articles which the examining team have put onto the website. I don't get it. The ACCA say, look, if you're using materials, look at official materials, the published ones being Kaplan and BPP. Both are good, both are fine. There's not really any difference. And then these are some things to look at. Okay, yet students do something completely opposite. They decide that the best thing for their study, in their opinion, is to look at some unofficial tuition provider online. Crazy, and just a waste of time. So please take it. I don't work for the ACCA. The ACCA have asked me to give my knowledge and experience to help you. And I'm telling you, as someone independent of the ACCA do a great job. They spend a lot of time looking at what's out there in terms of resources and providers, and they recommend people who are good, and they don't recommend people who are not that good. That's it. Yep. Sazwan's read some of the articles and they've helped. Yeah, I think you've got to just get a flavor and an understanding, Sazwan, for all of these articles, not just one or two. They're on the website not for fun. They're on the website to broaden your understanding of things. So I cannot stress that enough. Students saying, "Oh, I'm struggling expanding." Well, okay, have you read these articles that the ACCA provided for you? You haven't. Well, no wonder you're struggling to expand. Yeah, so sorry to be kind of blunt, but it's on a plate for you on the ACCA website. And despite being on a plate for you, people don't seem to take it. You know what you got to do. Okay. Let's have a quick overview of the exam format then, and the style. So if we're looking at the exam format and style, you will appreciate that you have 3 hours and 15 minutes, so that's 195 minutes. That's important because that facilitates some time management for us. Section A has 50%. 4 of those marks will be professional marks. So the professional marks at APM, if you've done SPL, obviously there's 20 professional skills marks on SPL, less obviously on APM, but still important. Also, you have 2 section B questions based on scenarios. One is going to come from syllabus area E, and the other one's going to come from the whole of the syllabus. And what you must remember is, despite maybe being overwhelmed by some of the content, all that you need to do is to get 50 marks to pass. And really, you don't need to get anything more than that. And that's really important for you to make sure that that happens. And to do that, there's certain techniques that we need to apply. And it's not about technical knowledge, it's a combination of professional skills with the technical knowledge, with the emphasis on interpretation and connecting of the information. Okay, so you only need 50 to pass. Anything more than 50 is wasted energy. But because of poor exam technique, a lot of people get 44, 46, 47. Oh, I only missed by 3 marks or 5 marks. You didn't. You didn't adopt the correct approach to the exam. And actually, the markers tried to find more marks than 46, but they just couldn't find them. And I'll explain how we're going to overcome that. Okay, so that's what your exam is going to look like. In terms of what capabilities do you need? Well, the first thing that you are going to need is when we're looking at strategic planning control models, it's not about regurgitation, but you have to think that you're a strategic level professional. You're a management accountant, and you know you need to know how to monitor strategic progress, how you need to control performance. So you would appreciate that there are external things coming into play and how they can impact on performance measurement. So a good example at the moment would be COVID. It's probably won't be in your exam, but you know it's had a big impact on performance. You can't blame managers for not necessarily doing very well in COVID because it's outside of their remit, isn't it really? So yeah, you're going to have to take a more holistic view of both internal and external factors. And you know, you're giving people advice on measurement and management of what's going on. Yeah. So you're bringing not just narrow focus, you're bringing stuff from all over the scenario and connecting it, synthesizing it, to give some opinion and advice. So it's a broader thing. You also will understand about risk, yep, and uncertainty and how, okay, we've got all these probabilities and whatever, but you know what, they're not guaranteed, are they? And we need to be able to advise managers that, yeah, that's kind of what it might be, but it might not be that. Yeah. So we just need to contextualize that risk as well, how significant it is. What does a good performance management system look like? So you're not going to have a good knowledge of coding and hardware and software, but you should have a good overview. And if you've read those articles I've recommended that you have a look at, I think you'll be okay. So you know how do they these technologies impact on performance management? It's very much part and parcel of a modern workplace. Read the articles on big data, read the articles on IT I mentioned earlier, and you'll be absolutely fine on this area. Which performance measures do we use? Well, really, it's something probably you have to learn on that one. So make sure you understand key strategic performance measurement techniques. Yeah, just got to appreciate that. Then you're going to have to adopt an advisory role. Yep. So you need to turn your technical knowledge into commercially viable advice to help make strategic decisions. Yeah, that's going to help the business. You also should appreciate about where companies could be vulnerable to corporate failure as well. Yeah, so you're there as their strategic advisor. This is strategic professional level, and you just need to, make sure that the people you're advising are aware of risks, of other factors that could impact on your advice, and from that, we need to, give some considered opinion and advice. So that's the capabilities we need. Does anyone have, we're being quite quiet, does anyone have any comments, questions, queries on what I've said there? I'll give you a moment to just consider some thoughts. Sires one says, how important would it be to include examples that happened during the pandemic in the coming exam? It depends on the question, Sires one. You can't just throw things in that you want to throw in. You have to throw things in which are relevant in the context of the situation. I think if you made a reference to it, it would be perfectly okay. I would think your exam would have been written and approved well before the pandemic, though. So, but yeah, the pandemic is a classic example of how the external environment can impact on performance management, and shows that we can't predict everything. We can just narrow down the risk. So, yeah, if you can just demonstrate that you're aware of that, that would be, useful. But I don't think there would be a question on pandemic in the next exam. So no questions from Estella. Hello, Estella. First time I've heard from you, so we're very welcome. Anything else? Okay, okay. If it's all good, don't forget, I am here for you. I'm here to help you. But I'm not going to force you to ask me questions. But I've given up. I've got 4 hours in the diary for you. But if we've not got lots of questions, so Fatin says, if the question didn't state any models to use, are we required to use models? No, you're not required to use models, but the key thing, Fatin, would be, I mean, have you done SBL, Fatin? No, okay, okay. Interesting. I would say that probably the closest exam in terms, well, not the closest, but in terms of skills needed. Okay, so P1, so you've had a little break. Okay, okay, okay. At the SBL exam and at the APM exam, I put it this way, it's about reflecting your behavior in the workplace. So if you were in the workplace and you were saying to your boss, using Porter's 5 forces, we could do this. If we look at 5 forces look at threat of new entrants. Your boss would think, huh? What are you talking about? It wouldn't be appropriate behavior in the workplace. So it's therefore not really appropriate behavior in APM exam. The models are there to act as catalysts, yeah, to structure your thoughts, to create plans in the context of the marking scheme for you to get really high marks. So it's not going to, in the workplace, your boss would say, okay, Fatin, can you use Porter's diamond to evaluate our next move? No one's going to ask that. Yeah, they're going to ask you, what should we do? And maybe to help you structure your thoughts and think in an appropriate way, Porter's diamond might be appropriate. Yeah, but they're not going to ask you to use a specific model at strategic professional level, full stop, really. But if I was a strategic management consultant advising clients in real life, I would help myself by using the models that I know to structure my arguments. And when I read strategic evaluations by business people, you can see that they've hung their arguments loosely on an academic model, but they never reveal their source of what academic model they're using. But obviously they've used maybe Pestel or Five Forces or something like that, but they never mention it. Yeah, and it's not about, you've shown you can understand models. It's about application. It's about application. In terms, so Chua said, think some topics overlap with SPL. What the questions asked will be difference between, so how will they be different? There's a bit more focus on performance management on APM as opposed to more strategic maybe on SPL. SPL looks at governance, it looks at lots of things, whereas APM looks more at the performance management aspect. Of course, Kay, you can use a model, of course. Yeah, they're similar. It's about application. It's about application. Yep, so thank you for those questions. Any others on what we've just said? So is performance management system a part of performance management system? Because when questions ask about performance management system, I'm not sure what system should I write. I think we'd have to look at a specific question there, Chu. But so the question, it might be about IT performance management systems, or it's about the overall environment of evaluating performance of the business. I think, you know, it's about reading the question. So it's difficult for me to say specifically on that one. Anything else? Okay, let's move on then. So the next thing, so we're cruising through here. The first three we've done. Bit quicker than on the other session because there's less questions, but maybe there's not quite so many people on the call. But it doesn't matter. I'm here for 4 hours if you need me. Let's have a look at why people fail APM then. What are the key reasons people fail? I want to make sure that you don't commit any of these crimes. And to be honest, if you don't, you should be okay. Why people fail are for the following reasons. And the first reason people fail is they have appalling time management. Yep. All you need to get is 50%. Yep. And I'm going to show you how that is going to happen. But if you don't manage your time, you're really in trouble. Yep. So it's crucial that we know exactly how many minutes we are spending on every single question. And I'm going to give you a load of tips on that so that you do your exam to time and you get over 50. Yep. Exams, in my opinion, they're project management exercises in mark acquisition. And if you were running a project, you would have very strict budgets, which are the equivalent of time management. You don't read, you don't plan your answer. You just write what you think. Crazy. Your business writing skills are not great either. Now, that's not about English skills. It's just you don't write like a business professional writes. And you seem to think it's all about the numbers. Well, PM's about the numbers. APM is about the interpretation, application of those numbers. It's different. Yeah, very different. So I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. In terms of time management, before we talk about time management, when you are doing APM exams to time, how long do you spend per minute, per mark? 1.8, 1.8, okay. And how does that work in the exam then if you're using 1.8 minutes? Kelvin, thank you. Chu, I think I misread what you said, because you talked about performance measurement and I read it both as performance management, so I apologize, but Kelvin's come back and kind of helped you out there, so thank you, Kelvin. Performance management is about what you do leading towards goals. Performance measurement is measuring your performance. Yes, I think that's fair enough. Sorry, Chu, I misread what you said there. So thank you, Kelvin. Okay, Estella, you failed it twice, 48 and 43. It unfortunately is because of poor exam technique, Estella. I'll explain to you exactly what you probably done wrong. So hopefully we can make sure that doesn't happen again. All right, so you're all saying 1.8. Do you not spend any time planning? We should maybe find our own comfort area with regards to time management, but whatever it is, you must have a strict time budget. Yep, and probably my advice would be something along these lines. It's 195 minutes, which you have. I'm probably going to spend about 45 of those minutes reading and planning. Yep. So, making sure I'm focusing on what is required. I'm giving appropriate levels of comments in the context of the marks. So essentially, I've got 150 minutes left for 100 marks. So once I've done this planning, I'm strictly going to apply 1.5 minutes per mark. If I don't apply some strict control over my performance, I'm going to get into real trouble, massive trouble, and I'm going to fail. And I'll show you how you'll fail in a moment. When time is up for a particular question, you must leave, you must move on. If you stay around, you're going to die. Yeah. So as I said to you a moment ago, treat it like a project management exercise. And if you do that, you'll be fine. How do we deal with the problem of poor reading and poor planning? Yep. Well, let's have a look at that. So how do we deal with a scenario? Well, my advice would be slice it up into more manageable chunks. Yeah, so you've got this great big scenario, but it can be broken down. So break it up into paragraphs. Make a note of where it links to particular requirements, maybe. Yep. There's an article that talks about this, which you hopefully are familiar with from the HCCA website. But if you haven't read it, I mentioned it previously. Make sure you have a look at it. Yeah. The other thing I think is important, as well as breaking it up and labeling the paragraphs, is interact with the scenario. Maybe highlight. That doesn't mean color it all in pink, but highlight some of the key words, particularly in the requirements. And try to see what's going on. Try to picture it. What's the story? Make it real. Yeah, and that's going to help you come up with some practical ideas. It's going to help you put it into real life. Yep. So break it into paragraphs. Maybe reference the paragraphs relevant to specific requirements. But also try to think, how does this work? Because to be honest, most exams are reflections of real company behaviors. Yeah. And if you've got good familiarity with the world around you, you should be able to picture it wherever you are. What else do I want to say? Well, in terms of effective reading and planning, I think most of us are doing this as a paper-based exam, but just in case you might be doing it in December and say it became a computer-based assessed exam, that can be a bit easier because you can just copy and paste the headings. But it's really important that you read the question, you break it down, you look at the marks, you look at the key words, the verb, the format, and also something that a lot of people miss out. The rule of and. I don't know whether you're familiar with the rule of and, but it's a very important exam word which you must look out for, because people often miss it and only answer half the question, so sadly only get half the marks. Don't forget, it's a professional exam. You're a strategic leader. If someone asks you to do a report and you don't do a report, that doesn't look very professional. So it's important that we make sure we follow the format, we follow the key words and the verb. You know, what is the verb asking someone? You know, if it's asked you to evaluate, you're supposed to give two sides to the story. I think for this to happen, I'll give you some practical tips in a moment, but we should be reading the requirement more than once. So let's have a little look here. So the rule of and. So discuss the benefits and drawbacks. So discuss the benefits and drawbacks. So there's two things here. There's the benefits and the drawbacks of World Alliance membership to the PC airlines in determining their future aims and objectives. Okay, so there's almost four separate things to look at there that you need to deal with. So if we're looking at the marking guide, it's very important we break our answer down accordingly. So let's look at this little question just for an example. It says, discuss whether or not the objectives of the directors of a quoted company are likely to conflict with those of the shareholders. So if there's 10 marks, what are the objectives of the directors? What are the objectives of the shareholders? What about the conflict? Yeah, that would be how I dissect the question. I'm looking for what I need to say. I'm spotting the marking guide. And although that might not be 100% accurate at strategic, put my teeth back in, at strategic professional level, you know, it might be up to 5 marks, up to 5 marks, up to 3 marks, or up to 4 marks. But there's flexibility in marking. Yeah, but by doing and taking this approach, you make sure you don't spend all your time on just one part of the requirement. We're breaking it down, and it makes sure we attempt all parts, and therefore we maximize our opportunity of getting marks. But remember, the ACCA marking scheme is quite flexible, and yeah, there's always credit given for any reasonable answer. Yep. Any questions on what I've said there? Sayaz one, is it okay to move to the next question even if my answer is hanging and incomplete? You've got to. It's not about perfection. If it was about perfection, the pass mark would be 100%. The pass mark is 50%. So it's potential that you've only got half of your answer down, but that's all you need to get. You need to get 50%. Yeah, I'll show you how if you try to be a perfectionist on one particular requirement, you're going to die in the exam. Yeah, so the answer to that is yes, it is okay, Sayaz one. Okay, sure, we're all right. Okay. Give you a moment if you have any more questions on what I've just said. Archie's all right. I don't know how the rest of us are feeling, but it helps if we interact, just so I know that you are okay and you're there and you're happy. And if you're not happy, I'm here to help you become happy. Thank you, Kay. Okay, Fatin, thank you, great. So out of everyone attending, we've got Maraj who's happy, Fatin's happy, Kay's happy. Lisa, hello. Chen, hey, we're back. Thiru, thank you. Kelvin, thank you. Good. Yeah. Let's not get complacent about not interacting, because it's important that we interact. Thank you, Fu. I don't think we've talked already. So let's talk. Some of you were kind of a bit worried about business writing, and let me give you a few tips before I demonstrate practical demonstration of these tips. I think the key thing you must understand is this is between you and a marker. Okay, it's between you and a marker. They mark your paper relatively quickly, so the key thing you need to do is make the marker's job easy. Okay, now how do we make the marker's job easy? Well, we use subheadings, we leave white space, we help them navigate our answer in clear layout. Yep, really important. They want to give you marks, you must help them give you marks by giving appropriate number of points to the marking scheme, helping navigation through referencing maybe a requirement in the question as a subheading, leave a gap between each point. So you say to the marker, here's a point, give me a mark. Here's a point, give me a mark. Here's a point, give me a mark. And if we go back to what we said before, there might be 4, 4, and 2. We've done that correctly. Okay, so that's important. Also important to create a good impression. So imagine going to an interview and someone say, oh, good morning, and you go, it doesn't look that impressive. Yep. So there's a bit of psychology in starting strong. So, you know, your opening line should be one that you've thought about, that sets you up to the marker as somebody who knows what they're talking about. You don't just take a machine gun effect and just jump in. Yep. So good opening statement is really important. It makes you look professional. It also psychologically conditions the marker to believe that you know what you're talking about. Just a quick demonstration on white space. A lot of students, they like to save paper, although you get a full booklet, so you're not really saving paper. And what they'll do, it's all squashed up, it's all like this. And what this requires me to do as a marker is work out where your points are. So I have to read it. It's like, okay, okay, and okay. Whereas we've got it like that, or we could have it like this, where we leave white space. Here, we send a message to the marker, point, mark, point, mark, point, mark. And as a marker, I can go bang, 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 bang. Much easier. It's just a simple psychological trick that will help you maximize your marks. And yet, a lot of students don't do that. Yeah, I don't know why. They seem to forget that it's all about you and a marker and quite a short period of time. In that short period of time, you've got to get across your points. Okay, so that's really important. Okay, any questions on white space? You can fade, but again, EG is okay. I mean, that would be appropriate in the workplace. If you are using abbreviations, I think the way in which you would use them in the workplace would be, you would mention what you're abbreviating first off, and then, so say the company name is, you know, Cholalonga Bolalonga, you might just say, oh, CG after that, but you might say Cholalonga Bolalonga bracket CG, and then use abbreviations after that. I think it's important that the markers understand what we're saying. So be careful we don't confuse. I mean, one of the failings of accountants in the real world is they use lots of technical jargon. So if you're using lots of technical jargon, non-financial people don't understand that. So people don't really understand the accountant's messages. Yes, I'll share with you, Estella, a good opening statement, but a good opening statement is just a summary often of what the requirements are asking and what you're going to do. Yeah, just like you would do in the workplace. So if I was to, just let me go back, how far can we go back? Yeah, so just going back to this question, discuss whether the objectives are likely to conflict. We would say, you know, in the context of the scenario, we're going to evaluate the key areas where directors and shareholders may not share similar objectives. From a director perspective, their key objectives would be subheading, you know, maybe maximize their salaries, subheading, you know, have an easy life or whatever, and shareholders maximize their wealth, etc. Yep. Is that okay? I mean, if you are reading business reports, you will see lots of good opening statements. But let me do one when we do some practical stuff later for you, Estella, as well. Remind me if I don't do it. Now, a key evaluator of your time management is your actual behavior in the time constraints of the exam. Yeah, if you're not doing exams to time, you're not preparing yourself for the exam. I'm not saying you do every question to time, but I'm assuming now we're getting close to the exam. We've finished acquiring our knowledge. We're now using that knowledge in the context of exam questions. It's a bit like driving a car. Would you take your driving test and get into a car for the first time on the day of your driving test? You'd probably say, that's ridiculous. Of course I wouldn't. Yet there are a lot of students who sit the exam and for the very first time, they do a 3¼ hour exam in the exam hall. Yeah. So you also must remember that getting in a car and practicing driving is about making mistakes. Just because you make a mistake when you're driving doesn't mean you'll fail your driving test. In fact, it means the opposite. You will have given yourself a learning opportunity to not do that again. But if you don't give yourself that learning opportunity, you'll make that mistake for the first time in the exam. Yeah, so it's really important that you, and it's one of the most important points I can make, you need to be doing a few, you should, I would hope, have done 3 or 4 exams to time before the exam. Yeah, and if you get 40 and learn from 40, fantastic. You need to get 50 or above on the exam day, and to get that, you need to build up to that. But if you're doing it for the first time on the exam day, that's obviously going to be very difficult. Fatin said, if the key point referring to the same scenario of the case? I'm not quite sure what you mean there, Fatin. I'm not quite clear on your question. If the key point referring to the same scenario of the case, can we combine? I think, you know, you're about, I mean, 2 key points. You can combine them, but you know, there's no hard and fast rules, Fatin, but I've just said to you, just let me just repeat again. Okay, I've said it's better to present your answers like that than like that. Yeah, and what you're asking me is, can I do it like that? Of course you can, no problem at all. But from a marker's perspective, who are marking quickly, here I don't even think as a marker. There's a point, there's a point, there's a point, there's a point, there's a tick, there's a tick, there's a tick. Whereas here, ooh, okay, yes, it's not, I could potentially, not necessarily, but potentially I could miss a point when we squash it all into one big paragraph. Yeah, you need to do articulated sentences with verbs and adjectives, Personally, if you've got 2 key points, I would split them. So you're saying to the marker, here's a point, give me a mark. Here's a point, give me a mark. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Much easier for the marker. Have empathy with your marker to build up that skill to do well in the exam. You know, I wouldn't allow any of my students to not do at least 3 papers to time. If you haven't got the opportunity for someone to mark those papers, maybe try to acquire a study buddy and mark each other's papers. Yeah. Also, it makes a commitment that you to the other person that you're going to mark theirs and they're going to mark yours. But obviously, find someone that is committed and is actually doing papers to time. Yeah. The real exam is an exam to time, so you must do it. Yeah. Just you must do a mock exam to time. Okay. It helps in all kinds of areas. It helps with understanding the exam conditions. It helps with you understanding the timing element, which you won't get right first time, so that's fine. Learn from it. It might reassure you that actually it's not that bad. You know, people seem to worry about failing. Well, the only way you're going to learn is to fail. A fail is a learning opportunity. If you don't create those learning opportunities, you're not going to learn. Yep. Also, doing an exam to time is going to help improve your exam technique. Yep. So if you mess up your timing on the mock, there's no harsher critic than yourself, and you'll think, oh gosh, I'm not going to do that again. Yep. And I'm going to do it differently. Okay. And if you can get a study buddy, you've got obviously someone else there to help you. So sit a mock to time, please. It's key. It's key. It's key. Alrighty. How are we doing time-wise? Are we still feeling okay, or do we need a little 5-minute break? I've been talking for quite a long time. Maybe we have a little 5-minute break and then we have another little 5-minute break just to keep us fresh. I'm conscious that I want you to remain fresh. I want you to remain engaged. Fatin wants a break. Okay. So I'm obviously in the UK. It's 8:47 in the morning in the UK. Could we maybe get back at 8:50? It's 8:48 now. So let's just quick 5 minutes. Go and get yourself a glass of water, a cup of tea, whatever. Can we start again at 8:55? So 7 minutes time. I'll be back with you in 7 minutes time. And if you've got any questions you want to pop into the chat box during that time, let's do so. So I'll see you in about 6 minutes. Yeah, we will have another one in about an hour's time as well, just to keep you fresh. All right, I'm going to get a cup of tea myself. Okay, gang, that's 8:55. So let's start again. I've got a couple of questions that have come through. Can I share how I would plan an answer? I've always found it time consuming to write down the plan. How can I improve it? Of course I can. I will do that, don't worry. Essentially, the plan is for you. The plan is not going to get marked. It might get looked at, though, if you are a borderline candidate. The examining team want you to pass if they can see from your plan that actually you get this and you're just a couple of marks short, so they'll give you credit. Lisa's asking, can we download the PowerPoint when finished? It will be sent to you, Lisa, I believe. You'll be given a link. There's a recording of all of this. So it will be all there for you to look at. Jolyn, 48 and 46. Yes, I'll tell you what probably happened, Jolyn, in a moment. And hopefully you can take my advice on board and get a pass next time. So well done for persevering. All right, what I want to have a look at now and next is how is APM marked? If you understand how it's marked, you might have a bit more empathy and how to write better answers. So let's talk about that. So we're going to have a little bit of an overview of the marking approach. We'll look at the principles of marking and just touch on what is meant by professionalism. So that's what we're going to do. I'll then do a little exercise looking at some past APM exam questions just to see what I would do when faced with a situation. So this is the marking team. You've got a marking session lead. So someone was talking about the examiner. There is actually a examining team these days because the exam takes place 4 times a year. And so they have not just one person as an examiner. And each time there'll be a marking session lead who's effectively the examiner. They will be someone from the ACCA, a qualifications technical advisor, who holds the examiner to account. And then below the examiner, there'll be some team leaders. Yeah, so these will be the senior markers as part of the marking team. So top of the tree there, the marking session lead, they lead the marking for a specific session. We then have reporting to the marking session lead team leaders, and a team leader will manage a team of markers. Yep. So there will be quite a few markers. I mean, it depends on the paper, but you know, there could be 50 markers. So these need to be managed by team leaders. And each team leader probably has about 8 to 10 markers under their command. So that's how it works. And I just want to demonstrate to you how thorough the process is. So what would happen is, to begin with, a standard, because it's a professional, strategic professional paper, it's not kind of like at earlier stages where 1 and 1 equals 2. It's not as simple as that. It's not multi-choice. And the exam and the answer will be written 6-12 months before the exam is sat. Students then sit the exam, and their exam answers are then scanned and put on a marking database by a specialist software marking company. And the senior exam people we mentioned before, so just click back. So the marking session lead and team leaders will review a sample of papers, and they will decide what because there might be things come up that hadn't been foreseen that students write, and they will then develop a marking guide which will be used by the markers. Okay, they will then develop a number of practice scripts that evaluate key observations that markers need to see. Yep. So these practice scripts will be created. What then happens is there'll be 2 different types of practice scripts. The first one, the markers will mark them, and then they can compare their marks to what the examining team have decided are appropriate marks, and they will therefore hopefully tailor their answers accordingly. And once they've got that clear, they will be required to submit some more standardization scripts which evaluate whether the marker has listened to what they'd learned from the initial practice scripts, and their mark needs to come very close to what the marking team believe the mark should be and have agreed is going to be. If that mark is very close, the markers are allowed to start marking. If it's not close, well, the team leaders have to then talk to the markers and say, look, you're being too harsh, you're being too lenient, you do another exercise. And only when they can prove that they are capable of marking to the standard will they be allowed to start. So they start, but it doesn't end there, because then what happens, every 10-20 scripts, there will be amongst the scripts downloaded by the markers a seeding script, and this will be something that the examining team have created and will be there as a check to make sure that the marker is still marking to the appropriate standard. Yeah, the markers don't know when it's a seeding script. It will be a secret script included in their scripts to mark, and if they don't achieve the appropriate mark in the seeding script, they could be stopped from marking and asked to retrain because they're going too far off the standard which they previously had proven to be able to observe. So my point is, it's really, really, really thorough. It's very, very fair because everyone gets treated in exactly the same way. It's a great process. You've got to have full confidence in the process, is my point. And hopefully that reassures you of the quality of marking, and in terms of what we're going to talk about in a moment, why it's really important to take on board what I'm saying. So in terms of the basic principles of not just APM, but all strategic professional exams, the suggested answers are way beyond what we would probably expect a student to write. And at strategic professional level particularly, I wouldn't just look at suggested answers, I would be looking at the examiner's report. Yeah, I'd be looking at the examiner's report. So that's important. Don't think you have to write an answer. They often have a tutorial value, the official answers as well. And if you write something that isn't in the suggested answer, credit can be given for this. As I say, that would often be picked up when the initial standardization is taking place. The examiner had intended students to go down this road, but some of them have gone down this road. So the result is that, okay, I didn't think they would do that, but actually what they've said is fine, and the markers will be aware of that. So again, read the examiner's reports. There's no negative marking, okay? Obviously, you're not going to get any minuses. There's not going to be any penalizing for spelling or grammar. Yeah, but it's about the positive, you know. It's about the positive that we're going to focus on. So don't think there's no minus marks. So in summary, it's not black and white. Credit can be given for any relevant answer. It's not negatively marked. Don't worry if you feel your grammar isn't very good. As long as the marker can understand what you mean, there's a lot of respect. Some students taking an exam in their third language, big respect. Just help the marker would be my point. I've got a couple of questions just to pick them up from RT. Yeah, there's a few of you. Galaxy Note 9, you've not put your name. You're sending questions to all panelists. You might have arrived late, but we did request that when you're making questions in the chat box, can you send them to all panelists and all attendees, not just to all panelists. So Lisa, all panelists and all attendees, can I download the PowerPoint? Yes, you can. You've joined this. The people who facilitated you joining will have your email and will be in touch. RT, again, can you do it to all panelists and attendees as well as Jolyn, please? Can I have the email of the person who will send us the link? Because I did not receive the recording for the previous session. I don't quite understand, RT, how you got onto this session. Have you stumbled across it, or did someone send you a link? Because if someone sent you the link, they have your email. So has it gone to your junk? It would be impossible for you to be on this session if the people organizing it didn't have your email. So you just need to look into that, but make sure, have a contact Jenny. It's a tedious marking process. Markers and team go through what students are going through as well. They do, Chen, yes. But it's important. The ACCA are very keen that it's absolutely fair. Chua, is the gamma or spelling mistaken? Are you, I'm not sure whether you're being ironic there, Chua, or you've just done a little bit of a misspell. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Is the gamma or spelling mistaken? I think it's not relevant. If your grammar isn't great, that's fine. As long as we get what you mean, absolutely fine. Chen, of course ACCA is worth it. Yeah, that's why it's such a popular qualification. It has lots of respect, and it has respect because of all the thoroughness that it goes through. So if I just give a bit more on marking for you, just so you can understand. Thiru, I've got something from Thiru. So I did not receive the last presentation materials, same as Arthi. Okay. I think you need to let Joanne know about that. You would have, or the people who said, sent you an email. That's all I can suggest there, really. Ryan might be, Ryan and Joanne are the people who have got me onto this, and they're involved in it. So I think Ryan and Joanne would be important. So yeah, sorry about that, Kelvin. Through. Kelvin says not an English exam, won't penalise you. I'll just say it again, there is no negative marking. There's no penalisation. There's no negative marking. Right? There's no minuses. Yeah. Chua, is grammar or spelling mistakes deducted from professional marks? That would mean negative marking, Chua. You don't start off with full professional marks. You have to demonstrate through your answers that you are worthy of professional marks. They're not taken away. There's no negative marking. No negative marking. Well, yeah, I think you just have to trust the ACCA about those processes, Chen, but it is very thorough of how it works. Your tutors should know that. I've explained that to your tutors on various train them up programs, so they should know that. Let's talk about a couple of other things. I would be aiming for 1 or 2 marks per point. Yep, so think of it like that. So don't be thinking you're going to get much more than that. Be prudent. The marking on APM is very reflective of the intellectual level. So it's strategic, professional. There's a science to setting exams, and there's something called Bloom's taxonomy I'll explain in a moment. And dependent on the exam, it determines the intellectual level demanded. So we're looking at technical knowledge, but in the context of a scenario. Yep, it's not theoretical, it's applied, as I keep saying to you. Quick review of Bloom's taxonomy. This is Bloom's taxonomy. You've got different levels. So at the very basic examination evaluation, you have to remember and comprehend things. Yeah. So yeah, it's basically kind of easy to assess that in multi-choice remembering stuff. So that's at your management accounting stage. At your performance management stage, probably most emphasis would be on analyzing and applying, maybe a bit of this, because there is some multi-choice. But then at advanced performance management, we're looking at evaluating and synthesizing. Yeah, don't forget, we're trying to reflect how we would behave in the workplace. That's what's important. So there's 6 levels, and your applied knowledge exams are going to be probably looking mostly in this area. Your applied skills exams are required to operate in this area, and then your strategic professional exams are accountable in this area. Yep, so AFM syllabus is at level 3, which is the top 2 lines of evaluation and synthesis. Yep. So just appreciate that. If you just churn out textbook knowledge, that isn't demonstrating evaluation and synthesis skills. Yeah, it's a practical exam. Remember that. Okay, so just to explain what intellectual level 3 is about, it's about synthesis and evaluation. Can you create new ideas or new insights from existing knowledge? Yeah. Can you look at the information which is not necessarily clear and make, evaluation comparison of it? Can you bring together lots of complex facts and evaluate them? Can you infer from it and make reasoned arguments and judgments? That's the kind of technical thing that a ACCA examiner would need to include in their task requirement style. So what does a good answer look like? Well, a good answer, I think you've probably got the message on this one, but a good answer is going to understand the links in a business between the whole of the business. So it's not just strategic level business operators, it would be tactical and operational. And you would understand that performance measures at different stages would not necessarily be the same. You would obviously demonstrate awareness of PM, but you're not necessarily going to have to use it in lots of detail. What else does a good answer do? Well, it doesn't just focus on one particular aspect of the scenario or just use one model. it's able to blend the information and suggest maybe weaknesses and holes in some of the arguments. Yep, it's about applications. It's not about doing lots of calculations. So just make sure that you are comfortable with all of that. So I mean, you do see some PM students just doing loads of calculations. It's like, you've proven that at PM level. Yeah. So be selective. I would encourage you to keep thinking when you make a point, so what, why, so what, why? Yeah. So in doing that, you would be able to look at alternative approaches from different perspectives. You would be able to question and maybe back up some of your arguments with evidence. You would have some commercial awareness. So yeah, okay, we could do that, but it's quite risky, it's quite expensive, and it's not our core business. Whereas on PM, it'll just be computer says yes or computer says no. Yeah, so it's as we wouldn't expect someone to behave in the workplace. So what I want to do next is I want to practically interpret some of these things by looking at some past exam questions. So I've just got to change screen share here for a moment. Just bear with me a second. So I'm going to change my screen share. Just on that one. Just put the chat panel back in. Can you just confirm to me you can see a screen with some lines on which says poor timing and stuff like that? Great, great. I apologize if I'm looking down a little bit here because I'm just looking at writing on a screen. So let's have a look. So just to remind you, why do people fail the exam? Key reasons for failure. Number one, I talked about poor timing. Number two, I talked about poor layout. And number three, not reading the question asked. So if you're someone who's getting 46 and 48, I would suggest you will have suffered from one of these three things. You will not be technically weak. Your exam technique needs a bit of fine tuning, if I'm honest. So let's deal with each of them in turn, just to summarize them again, and then let's have a look at some questions. So as I've said to you, section A, if we take we've got another 15 minutes, but I said 1.5 minutes per mark after we take the 15 minutes plus another maybe 30 minutes from the exam. And in order to manage our time, I would be writing down start and finish. So if it was a 10-mark question, if it was 10 marks, i.e. 10 times 1.5 equals 15 minutes. If the time was in the UK, it's 9:17. I'm going to add 15 minutes onto that, and I would end at 9:32. And that is how I manage my exam. If you don't manage your exam that way, you're out of control. Yep, you're out of control, and you need to. I don't know whether you do that or not. Those people who have got a mod, and thank you for your input because you're going to help other people. Does that make sense? Well, that's very kind of you, Chen. There's no need for that. But in terms of start and finish, do you do that in the real exam? I mean, just be honest with me. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to advise. Let me have a look. My chat panel's frozen. Never done it before, Kelvin. Have you done this exam before? Okay, okay. Okay, Fatin, it requires practice. It's like driving a car. That's why I'm encouraging you to do this. It's really important, and that's why you've got to practice. Those of us who are maybe new to APM and are looking at people who marginally failed, they didn't have any technical weaknesses. They had exam technique weaknesses. And it's really important for every exam, if I'm really honest, to do this. And I'll show you why in a moment. Just another little tip as well as time management, not reading the question. You have to appreciate that in an exam, you are going to be a bit nervous. Your result of being a bit nervous is you're going to have endorphins in your body, which are you're going to have cortisol in your body, which is more of a stress chemical. And that can hijack some of your brain a little bit and maybe create tunnel vision in your reading. So to overcome that, my advice would be you read the requirement once, you read the requirement for a second time, and then if you can, do a brainstorm, do a mark focus, and that should facilitate you to have a plan. You do not jump in though. What you then do, because you might have had a bit of tunnel vision thinking the question is about that, you look at your plan and you read the question a third time and see, does the plan and does the third reading correlate? And often by doing this, you think, and I didn't do the second bit. And that's great. We've identified it before we've wasted any unnecessary time. So really important, read it once, read it twice, brainstorm, mark focus, read it a third time. Really important. Really important. Here is an example of a typical student behavior. In fact, just because I wrote this out, but I'm going to write it again because that's a bit messy. So what happens in an exam? Let me draw you a quick graph. If we have an axis here, and we have this one to be time, and let's say this one is roughly mark score per minute, and I've done this with samples of students to prove it. If we're looking at question 1, which is 90 minutes, your 90 minutes is maybe here. That's question 1. I would suggest just very roughly that your mark score per minute, you're going to get the first 50% more quickly than the second 50%. Hence, but this is 90 minutes. So at 90 minutes, we stop and we start on question 2. And that is then another 45 minutes. And then we start question 3. And that takes us up to 180 minutes. And there's your 3-hour exam. And that is the behavior of a really good student. And what that student needs to get is 50%. And they're going to get 50% because 50% is 50 out of 100. And that student has answered all of the requirements. They've given themselves the opportunity to get marks on all of the requirements. Okay. PH Lau says they immediately start writing till the end of the exam. I haven't tried this approach before, but worried not sufficient time for writing the answer. It's about quality. It's not about quantity, PH. Faye, I just keep writing and try not to stop. You cannot do that, Faye. You cannot do that. And the reason you cannot do that is for the reason I'm going to give you in a moment. So let's put a different color in. So a student who is not managing their time, maybe a bit like you, Faye, this is what happens. I start the thing and I'm doing well, but I can say more, I can say more, I can say more. And I do say more, and then I stop. But notice that, you know, at this area here, the marks I'm acquiring are not as high as had I left there and gone here where I'm, yep. Anyway, that's what I do. So I overrun, and that's my question 1. I then do question 2, and I can say a little bit more, and then question 3, I'm dead. So again, I've overrun when I should have stopped. Is that a big deal? It's a massive deal. And the reason it's a massive deal is to pass, I still need to get 50. Okay, but instead of getting 50 out of 100, this is maybe 50 marks, this is 25 marks, and really I didn't do anything there. So now I need to get 50 out of 75, which isn't 50%, it's 67. And that is far, far more difficult. Okay, so those of you who might have got 46 and may haven't managed your time, you actually got 46 out of maybe 75, and you actually did do quite well. So if I just measure 46 out of 75 as a percentage, what's going on? Let me quickly do it. 46 divided by 75, 61%. But the exam is not marked out of 75, it's marked out of 100. See the problem? That's why time management is so, so, so important. And you have to physically, I can say more. Of course you can say more, but you only need to say 50. You need to give yourself the opportunity to get the first 50% of all the marks. And if you do so, you're going to be much more likely to pass. If you do really well on 2 parts of the question, although you might get 61% out of 75, it's not marked out of 75, it's 46 out of 100. And that is unfortunately a fail. So that's a bit tough love, that one, but it's really important that you appreciate it. It's tragic. Markers who see someone with 45 and people say, oh, and he missed it by 5 marks. You didn't miss it by 5 marks. You basically did pretty well on question 1 and question 2, but you just didn't give me anything to go on to give you any more marks. And unfortunately, I can't conjure up marks out of thin air, and unfortunately, you failed. Yeah, really, if you learn anything today, that is the most important thing for you to learn. Does that make sense? Yeah, Kelvin, I'll talk about question requirements in a moment, but for now it's about time management. That is a really important point that I want to make sure you understand. Really important. Project management exercise in mark acquisition. Okay, all right. So I've got here a couple of questions just to show you the diversity in how technical knowledge is assessed in the APM paper. This is an exam question from June 13, so something how far back do I go? A lot of what's included in this is still relevant. You have a scenario. Here in this scenario, you've got 2 pages. You do have some numbers. And what do we need to look out for? So this is about a hotel. It's a large listed chain. Its mission is to, so it's important, well, so what I would tend to do, I would maybe begin by reading the requirements. So it's first of all, I'm not going to do all of it, but just so here, the characteristics that differentiate service businesses from manufacturing ones, using Colmog to illustrate your points is only 5 marks. Okay, so I've got that one clear. And then it says, evaluate the strategic performance report and choice of metrics in Appendix 1. Okay. And then it talks about a balanced scorecard. I'll maybe look at that in a moment. So do I need to read the scenario for the first one? Not really. It's just talking about the difference between a service and a manufacturing business. Evaluate the current strategic performance report and the choice of metrics used. So the strategic performance report that they have is given in Appendix 1. Is there anything given here? So senior executives at Colmog have drawn up a list of perspectives and metrics and outlined the balanced scorecard in Table 1. Okay, so that's the balanced scorecard. The history of rewards has not been good. only 1% of staff receiving their maximum bonus and 75% receiving no bonus. So it can't be very motivational. Under a new performance management system, employee targets are derived from the balanced scorecard, depending on the area of responsibility. The new system is for hotel managers to be given challenging targets. So hotel managers, challenging targets against budgeted profit, industry-wide staff turnover, and average satisfaction scores. They'll get 30% of their basic salary as a bonus. Yep, the CEO wants you to use Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. So it does ask for a specific model there, and you do need to be familiar with Fitzgerald and Moon's building block model. So there we have it. We then have the performance report for you to review. It looks at revenue, it looks at cost of sales, it looks at staff costs. But straight away, it doesn't really look at anything other than numbers, does it, in my opinion? So we might be commenting on that. So what am I going to do? Well, the first thing, just to go back, this first one only asks us to talk about 5 marks max. So to get 100%, we need to give 5 points. We need to do 5 times 1.5, which is 7.5 minutes in total. Okay, so that's the first one. So what am I going to do? As I said to you before, I'm going to do a brainstorm. The question asks, what is the difference between a service business and a manufacturing business, and use the Colmog Hotel to explain your points. So my brainstorm, you can't store a service. They're consumed and bought at the same time. If I don't sell a hotel room tonight and I've got 100 rooms, I can't sell 101 rooms tomorrow. Yep. Because it's a service, it's difficult to achieve it's kind of consistency. It's not homogeneous, and we only temporarily own a service whilst we're enjoying it. We don't keep it permanently, but you know, a packet of noodles we do keep longer. So we could also say, I suppose we can add to that, it's perishable. It can't be stored. So we need to get 5 marks. Is that enough for us to get, let's say, over 3 marks? Of course it is. It's not appropriate to do a bullet point. I would be able to then, just to give you an example, let's just add a page. So a strong opening statement someone asked me about before. So I'm going to do part A. The key differences. Let me just read the question one more time in case I'm not doing it. The characteristics that differentiate a service business from a manufacturing one, the key differences which distinguish a service business from a manufacturing one include, and because I've done a brainstorm and a plan, I would say not able, well, I might say they're perishable. Services cannot be stored. Underline. A manufactured good, once produced, can be stored for usage later. However, a service such as a hotel room will be purchased and consumed at the same time. E.g., if Colmog had 100 hotel rooms and sold only 90, the 10 unsold rooms could not be stored and sold the next night, i.e. they could only sell 100 rooms. Okay, and I wouldn't say any more than that, but an articulated paragraph with a subheading. I'm then going to leave some white space. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is maybe difficult to standardize. I'm going to underline and say, because of the human element in a service, you know, I could make 1 million cans of beans exactly the same. It's more difficult with a service. And I'm going to do that maybe 4 times. And I'm going to get 4 out of 5. I'm going to check the watch. Happy days. So Fira said, do we get marks for writing the key points without elaborating the points further? Would that be appropriate behavior in the workplace, Fira? I would throw back at you. I would think not. Yep. So you might get something. At most, you might get half marks, but you've got 7.5 minutes to get these points down. You lose half the marks if you don't articulate what you want to say in verbs and adjectives. Please avoid using bullet points. Okay. So important that we don't, you know, if you knew a lot about this, you could say loads. Yeah, Kelvin, you know, heterogeneity might be too big a word for some. Yeah, it's just difficult to standardize. That's another word. To make them heterogeneous is easier for a manufactured good, but not for a service good. Yep. Can you use a table? Why do you want to use a table, Steffi? I think it's perfectly acceptable. So you want to spend time where, you know, it's a time constrained exam and you want to spend more time creating a table, just use a subheading and leave white space. That's all you need to do. And Steffi, it's not just to all panelists. Kelvin, sorry, Kelvin, you're doing it. Steffi, all panelists and attendees, so people can see what you're saying. Same with Theory, still just sending things to panelists. It's panelists and all attendees, so everyone can be part of the conversation, please. Okay, so that was the first one. What's the next one saying? It asks us to evaluate. So what does it mean when we see a verb evaluate? Well, so what is the current performance report like? You need to tell me what's good, but you also need to tell me what's not great. And tell me about the choice of performance metrics used. It mentions them up here. Okay, this has to be linked, I would suggest, to what the management wanted, and they wanted something linked to the balanced scorecard. So it assumes knowledge of the balanced scorecard, and with that knowledge, you'd be able to assess whether the performance report is appropriate or not. So I've written some, so evaluate, look at the report, and look at the choice of metrics. As I've said already, all of the metrics are financial. So what? Well, it doesn't quite link in with what was suggested for the management as an improvement. It's a service business. There's no reports on the service levels. The mission was about being the #1 hotel. Why? You know, it doesn't reflect that at all. Also, what is the relevance of breaking things down to east, west, north, and south? That didn't seem, is that just what they've always done? And they're just continuing doing that? There hasn't, I mean, it might allow, you could, the positive, it would allow more detailed evaluation of regional differences. So yeah, say the positive, say what's good about it, but also I'm not sure whether that is following the criteria that mentioned. There's quite a lot we can say on this one, but remember, there's only 8 marks. So we needed to do our brainstorm. As I said to you before, if you can keep thinking, so what, why, so what, why, that's going to potentially push your marks up to 2 if you say that against each of the points. Yep. So, yep, we need to get over 4. And again, we've got 8 minutes. So on 8 minutes, sorry, we've got 8 marks. Where we've got 8 marks, we've got 8 times 1.5. That equals 12 minutes. It's a project management exercise. We need to keep control of that time. Really, really, really important. Okay. Let's have a look. Well, we can have a look at balance scorecard as well if you want. I've done something for you. I'm just trying to give you a selection here. Evaluate the balance scorecard at Colmog, suggesting suitable improvements. Now, the thing that I'm really focused a bit on here is the fact that there's 12 marks. Yep. So we need to evaluate. So don't forget, evaluate is not criticize. Evaluate is about what's good and what's not, or what could be improved. Yep. And also, we need to, in our marking scheme, be aware that we need to get 12. So we evaluate, see what we can say. So let's do a little bit of a brainstorm. Let's just go to what I've said. So balance scorecard, evaluate it, suggest improvements. You want to get big marks here. So what's good about the balance scorecard? Well, what's good about the balance scorecard in general is it doesn't just focus on finance. It focuses on a broader range of objectives. What's good about the thing that's mentioned in the scenario? Well, it talks about financial performance, which is important, a key driver. It looks at customers, which are a key contributor to the success of the business. It also looks at happy staff, but it doesn't really mention anything about innovation and learning. It doesn't really mention too much about it says hotel performance, but what performance? Hotel efficiency, the internal health and efficiency of it. You know, I would be saying lots of things here, like it's a hotel. I'm picturing it. It's a hotel. So financial in a hotel, I might be looking at the margin per room. I might be looking at upselling. You know, can I get them to purchase breakfast? Can I give them a deal? Picture a hotel. Yeah, visualize it. Customer satisfaction. When I go to a hotel, what might I measure satisfaction from? Well, yes, maybe people fill out, I don't tend to fill out things unless I'm not happy, but maybe a better way would be to use something like a mystery guest. That's used in hotels a lot. Hotel performance against budget. Well, performance of what? I would hopefully they're going to look at financial and non-financial measures. What kind of things? Room occupancy. Yeah, repeat business. Yeah, those kind of things. So we have to keep going on this, I would suggest, until we, in our plan, know we're getting close to the 12 marks. The next question, just to show you, what is the difficulty? So there's only 7 marks, so half the length of answer, but what is the difficulty in implementing? Well, because it's change. So describe the difficulties. People are afraid of change. They don't like change. They're resistant to change. They don't understand it. Yep. Also, some of the measures might be difficult to quantify. So again, there's a quick brainstorm. That's what I would include. Yep. And then why do we set targets? So this, you can really come back on this question on why do we set targets? Let me show you. So difficulty is change. People don't like change. Not all measures are congruent. Some contradict. So yeah, we got why we play. Well, it hasn't. I don't think I've written. But on the final thing, I would step back even further. And why do you set targets? So it's not just setting targets, but we would need to talk about why we set targets. But why do we need to set challenging targets? And you know, assess what the hotel managers' ones are like. You know, in general, why do I set targets? I would think about a mnemonic crumpet, coordination, responsibility, utilization, motivation, planning and allocation of resources, evaluation of progress, and telling for communication of where we're going. That's why we set targets. There's a mnemonic of 8 things. I've got 8 out of 14 just by doing that. So there's a section A question. Do we have any questions on what I've just done? I'll put in here an answer so you can blow that up on your screen. This is the official answer. I've given you my brainstormed answer. There's the next page of answers. There's the next page of answers, and there's a marking scheme, but you could potentially get more marks for other points as well. So you can look at this on record and look at that in more detail. But does anyone have any questions on what I've just done pretty quickly there? Yeah, I agree with you, Kelvin. But in terms of what I've done, is that okay? Okay. So think about what I did there. I did a brainstorm. I did a mark focus. I think on the balanced scorecard one, I would have done a brainstorm and probably come up with 6 marks. And then I think, oh gosh, there's 12 marks. I need to say more things. So what else more can I say? And I might have added a few more suggestions and kept going to try and get 12 out of 12 on that one. There was massive potential to get 12 out of 12. Yes, I do really write down my brainstorm points. What would you suggest? I don't know your name, Galaxy Note 9. Maybe that is your name. What would you suggest? Keep it in your head. In the stress of an exam, we're likely to forget. To stop us forgetting, we write things down. So yes, and in my answer, I might just write, so just going back to where we were, I might just write this as a plan and then just draw a neat line through the plan. So if people want to look at it, they can see it. There's no need to cover it in correction tape. Don't forget, if you were a borderline, they might look at your plan. Don't expect it to be looked at, but it might be looked at. Okay, fine. So let's move on to another example. I've got a question here, which you'll find on the ACCA website from March, June 2017. I'll probably just look at the, let's just have a look at what taking a question apart. So this is about a facilities management company who people outsource services to. And what the first thing you're asked to do, the first thing I see is the fact that I have to write a report. Yep, and we're asked to evaluate. So when we're asked to evaluate, positive, negative, and we're looking at the current, oops, sorry, we're looking at the current performance indicators and its mission. So we need to work out what its mission is. So we need to, when looking now, reading in more detail. So it's a listed company, provides facilitation management. The mission is to give shareholders profitable growth by developing the best talent to provide world-class services. So when we're looking at the current KPIs, the current KPIs are given here. So KPI we have would be cleaning, security, catering, building services, full service, and it explains each of these in a list of 8 definitions. So just straight away, one of the things I noticed was it said to give shareholders profitable growth, the best talent. So going back to the KPIs, does it talk about profit? Well, it does talk about ROCE, so that's fine. Does it talk about talent? I'm not sure it does talk too much about talent, so I might criticize that. So all I'm doing is connecting the mission, connecting the requirements, and adding them up and coming with some decent points. The next thing says assess the assumptions and definitions. So we're asked to assess them. What do we think about them? Yep. In the calculation of KPI. So let's have a look at those two. So the first one, reading the requirements, it asks there's only 8 marks, it's 12 minutes, it's a report. So we've got 5 KPIs and we need to, so thinking about the marks, we've got 5 KPIs, we're going to link it to the mission. How many marks do we need to get? We need to get 8. If we deal with each of the 5 KPIs, that's 5. So you're going to get at least 5 for that. What might be missing? Well, probably 2 or 3 things. So 5 plus 2 or 3 gives me 7 or 8 out of 8. I'm happy. As I note there, I am on target. So I've taken a project management approach to mark acquisition. Yep. I've got an agenda of acquiring 8 marks. I'm not just writing a story of anything. I'm trying to get 8 marks. Where are those 8 marks going to come from? We'll probably talk about each KPI. There's probably 5 marks there. There's 8 marks though. So we need to make sure we link this and the mission. So we need to link those. But what's missing? Let's try and get 2 or 3 marks if we want to get 8 out of 8. But you don't need 8 out of 8, but potential to get 8 out of 8. Okay, so here we go. I begin here by talking about the mission. I talk about the KPIs, operating profit margin. It does show profitability. It's expressed as a percentage that enables evaluation of efficiency. So that's good. Secured revenue. Well, it's long-term recurring revenue, which is contracted. So yes, it's linked to profit, although it's not clear completely how it's linked. Management retention, it could be linked to talent, those who might stay, those who might go, but there's not really any measurement of talent. So that's not so great in the context of the mission. It mentions about the order books, and it doesn't really talk about the profitability of those contracts going forward. It just says what they are. Organic revenue growth, yeah, it's okay, but it just really indicates what might happen, and there's no guarantee. So if we think about each of those, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've made some comments. We've got at least 5 out of 8. We've passed it. What's not addressed? Well, there's no addressing of world-class services. There's no measure of that. We might want to have some kind of benchmarking. Maximize efficiency wasn't really addressed. You might want to have something that can evaluate that. And it's all a little bit internal. We might want some more competitive and external based measures. And if we said those 3 things, there's 8 out of 8. But we passed it by sticking to the requirements of the question. I've got a question from PH now. During the exam, we need to explain our answer, like the answer given, as it seems lengthy. Well, yes, you do need to explain it, because the markers are not paid to infer what they think you mean. You need to tell them what you mean, and they'll give you the marks. But they're not paid to work out what they think you mean. Yeah, they're paid to mark what you tell them. That would be my point there. So yes, please adopt what I'm suggesting. If I just throw in an examiner comment on this, part 1, an evaluation of the links between mission and indicators. This required a common APM task of identifying mission. Candidates were good at repeating the mission, but few showed appreciation of the structure and how certain goals were subsidiary to the overall aim. Most scored okay. My point would be you could have scored really well on that had you followed the requirements to the letter. In terms of part 2, assumptions and definitions used in the calculations, there's 12 marks, there's 18 minutes, start and finish. There's 8 definitions. So if we deal with each of the 8 definitions, we've at least got 8 out of 12. 8 out of 12 is nearly 70%. So let's have a look. Well, we should appreciate how performance indicators can be manipulated and how to avoid that manipulation. Yeah. And there was a suggestion that results are biased to artificially boost share price and therefore help, the holdings the senior management have. Operating profit margin, I did do a little bit of analysis of the figures there, and it showed that actually if you did a few calculations, you can read through that, look at the answers. catering could have made a loss, and margin would fall. Secured revenue, but maybe they don't want 100% showing, so they can look like they're stretching themselves. A bit weird that the budget wasn't completed till well after the start of the year. That would, I would suggest, lead to manipulation and fixing of the budget, and it did go down from 1565 to 1460, so that's a bit dodgy again. In terms of management retention, it's a good thing to do, but they only look at those on full-time contracts, and that represents 65% of the workforce, so they completely ignore 35% of the workforce. So that's a bit strange as well. Are they not bothered about those people? In terms of order book, it was a bit ambiguous. You know, what's the cash value of it? Are they discounted? Some of the money's not received for 10 years. You know, what value is it in the books? It's not clear to me. Yeah, acquisitions. What if we took acquisitions out? It's organic revenue growth. You can easily improve growth by just buying someone with better figures. Strip the acquisitions out and see what growth was. So if you take 48 million out, the growth went from 7.2 to 3.9. Rocky, obviously we can manipulate the asset value on Rocky, and we can also manipulate the profit by messing around with depreciation and accruals and stuff like that. Yep, so you should be familiar. That's kind of bread and butter for or rice and noodles in Malaysia for the average APM student. Okay. What's the difference between evaluate and assess? Well, it's in the same ballpark, but evaluate, I would say, is always looking at the positive and the negative. What's good, what's bad. Assess, what's your opinion on what's going on. Yeah, I wouldn't get confused. I mean, don't be negative about it. Evaluate, positive and negative. Assess, take in the information and draw some conclusions from it. You don't necessarily, but it's similar, I agree. It's similar, but I don't want to get, it's like, it's a strategic professional exam. It's not about learning the definition. It's about taking the requirement on board. Yeah, but evaluate, my approach would always be positive and negative. What did the examiner say about this? Well, it required you to detailed consideration of performance measures and how they're put together. Responses were a bit limited. Candidates only scoring a single mark per indicator, but with 6 indicators and 12 marks on offer, they failed. So they didn't focus on the marks. That's what I keep saying to you. There's 12 marks, get them. Yep. And you needed to not just tell me what the indicator was, you needed to say, well, yeah, it's okay, but there is potential for that to be manipulated. Yep, and we should be aware of that. So again, at APM level, many candidates showed they didn't understand how to calculate return on capital employed. Bit of a worry. If you don't know that at performance management level, you shouldn't really be passing performance management. So you should, anyway, that's not good. How are we doing time-wise? Another one, it's asking about benchmarking. So I personally always read the requirements first. Sorry, let me just got something hiding in the crowd. So here, assess the progress of the benchmarking exercise to date. Explain the actions that have been undertaken and those that are still required. 8 marks. Evaluate. So again, assess. So how's it doing? Evaluate Ganymede's benchmark position, 9 marks. So relatively equally split. What are they benchmarking? Well, it's one of the largest universities in Thailand, which has 8 universities. All universities are in the public sector. GU, or Ganymede University, obtains a vast majority of its revenue through government contracts for academic research and payments per head for teaching students. The economy has been in recession, and this has caused the government to cut funding. In order to try to improve efficiency, the Chancellor, who leads its executive board, has asked the head administrator to undertake a benchmarking exercise. The government education has supported this initiative and has required 3 universities to cooperate. So they've got information on their research, on their facilities, student support, their accounting, and they've got various drivers, student numbers. So you would, by just looking at that, well, it explains the key drivers of cost and revenues have been assumed to be research, contract values, student numbers. So in terms of if we're looking at student support services, you're probably going to have to connect student support services to student numbers. If we're looking at student support services, we're probably going to connect those to staff numbers. If we're looking at contract management revenues, yeah, we might look at contract value. So just, initially they're the kind of things I'm looking at. There's quite a big figure here, general services. What is that? That's pretty big compared to the others, and I'd like to know what that consists of. So other things in the way in which we talk at APM level: gross margin, percentage, profit per meter squared, per employee. Yeah, you have to contextualize your numbers. It's 12 marks. Sorry, it's 8 marks, 12 minutes. Benchmarking, what do I know is a quick brainstorm. I know it's internal, external, or process. So what would I do here? Well, let's look at what was not done really well. And that was not very well structured because students didn't do a plan. Yep. So they want to improve efficiency, and they want to benchmark admin operations relating to teaching and research. Yeah, a lot of the requirements are made kind of clear in the actual detail. So if I was going to undertake a benchmark, so just another approach, it asks you, just going back, about assess the progress of benchmarking. Well, when you were assessing the progress of benchmarking, this is what benchmarking might look at. We might also think, well, what does benchmarking do? What is the process? Well, normally we have objectives, we identify the drivers and indicators, and then we select who we're going to benchmark against. We compare performance and we specify improvement. So 1 to 5 there, and 6, then we implement improvements. That's what we do. Have they followed that? Have they followed that? And yes, they did set objectives. They wanted to improve efficiency. Have they identified key performance indicators? They have, but I could have broken it down a bit more, maybe by faculty, maybe staff down by teaching and non-teaching. Have they selected who to benchmark against? Yeah, they have. They've got the 3 largest ones. There are 8 universities. I think that's pretty good. They will have similar economies of scale. Maybe we could have looked, if we think about other things, we could have looked at process and maybe not looked at universities. There will be things maybe like, I don't know, some of the administration, which could be benchmarked against similar businesses that do similar admin to universities, although they're not necessarily universities. So that's good. They have kind of reached the comparative stage where I say they compare performance. They haven't actually started to specify improvement, but they're getting there, and they haven't implemented it. We're asked then to evaluate. Yes, when you're asked to evaluate, you don't just give the facts, you speculate why. So yeah, just make sure you do that. Do you know, assess the use of EVA? Yep. Why would we use EVA? What is the value of EVA? Does anyone know? Been talking a while there. Ask me some questions. What does it mean though, Kelvin? Why do we use it? Why is it introduced? Where is it particularly relevant? The definition might be wrong, but understand it and then you can talk about it. Give me some of your points. Why do we use it though? My question was to measure shareholder wealth. Okay, yes, it is. And why does it link to shareholder wealth? So good, thank you. I think if I was to describe it, economic value added is a performance measurement which is often very appropriate for executive performance incentives, because we put factors into the measurement which hopefully minimize short-termism. So we might cut training, we might cut marketing, we might not reinvest in assets, whereas an EVA calculation will often make adjustments to account for that. So that's the use of EVA. Yeah. Yes, Calvin, yes. All right, so that just thought I'd highlight EVA to you. And there's, let me just go a bit more slowly, but if you're watching, I mean, this is all available on the ACCA website, so just have a look there. There's something about what EVA is. It gives you some measures. You can enlarge your screen, but it is all available on the ACCA website. I'd encourage you to go there. But let's have a look at what the examiner said. So there was 8 marks for the assessment of EVA as a performance measure at Beach. It was pretty good. And yeah, so for a starter, people didn't do too badly. You've learned EVA. The one that wasn't done too well was part C, which I didn't look at, but this required justified recommendations on divisional control and management style. So this is what I keep saying. Students on APM are not very good at the numbers, and this part was poorly answered as people didn't know about responsibility centers, and this has actually been demonstrated by students previously, and the examining team can't quite believe it, but it's evident that students aren't very good at it. And you know, it's not about regurgitating management styles. It was about appropriate ones to apply in this situation. So the general lesson for future candidates is to learn not just the models or jargon, but how to apply them. Yeah, and that's only possible through question practice and not merely learning generic answers that can be ported from one question to another. Candidates should also make sure that they understand issues around responsibility and the choice of responsibility centers. So what's the main message that the examiner wants you to take on board? Well, answer the question requirement, not your own version. So don't just try and push in your learned model. What's the difference, or understand the difference between questions on the choice of metrics and performance? Practice application of your knowledge. Practice application of your knowledge. So that's good. So I've got a little bit here on EVA. I'll let you, again, I've prepared all this for you. I'm conscious we have limited time and probably limited concentration. So you might want to just spend a few minutes looking at this in terms of what I've done. And I've also then talking about the ROI and the residual income. So they were asked to be done, but I highlight here advantages and disadvantages, which is something you should appreciate. So just make sure you're happy with that. But again, you know, this area is one which stimulates debate. There's not a right and wrong. So make sure you're happy with it. I did some calculations for you on the ROI and how that, you know, what it showed. And maybe really to make a decision that is going to be really helpful, we need a little bit more information. with regards to what businesses outside of this company are doing. So we need to contextualize it before we can make judgment whether it's good or bad. Again, talking about management style, I've put something down there for you to have a look at, so have a look at that. Another question talking about stakeholder. Are we still okay? Have we got any questions on what I've said there? I mean, I'm going at a reasonable pace, so you've just got a little bit of stuff to look at in your own time. So you'll see my answer is not maybe so detailed and so massive paragraphs as the ACCA official answers, and you know, some of them might be a little brief. I would maybe add the odd verb and adjective, but that would be important. Everyone okay? Okay. All right, good. Let's have a look at this. I'm trying to think. I've got probably too many to go through, but there was a bit of calculation on this one, but not all. So the first bit, just to show you the emphasis on APM, is asking us to advise which of the three newly developed products each of the three key stakeholder groups would choose to export based on their risk appetites. So who are the stakeholders? Well, it makes it clear who they are. It says that three of key stakeholder groups, employees, directors, and shareholders, have been consulted for their views. Okay, and you've got three separate products. They obviously are shown, the three products are shown in Appendix 1. So in Appendix 1, sorry, I haven't pulled that through, have I? Oh, apologies, I've just done the, so you're going to have to kind of just refer to that Appendix 1, but I've done the answer for you here. There's 14 marks, there's 21 minutes, we start, we finish. Who are they? They're the employees, they're the directors and their shareholders. We do need to maybe do some calculations. So the appendix gave you information to allow you to do minimax, maxi-min, minimax, regret. I think the advice here would be make your calculations where you are asked, sorry, just my microphone a bit, where we are asked to do calculations, you need to talk to the examiner, the marker, like you're talking to a child. So here I've made it very, very clear. I've said, you know, 400,000 is 50,000 times 8, in case I make a mistake, because the thing to remember, which will always help you, is the OFR. Do you know what the OFR is? Someone must know what the OFR is. Come on. It's an abbreviation for something. B says she knows. So what is it, B? B, can you respond to all attendees and panelists, not just panelists? And Estelle, you please, all panelists and attendees. OFR, you don't know? Come on, you must know. Yeah, it's called the own figure rule. Yep, if you've read any information on ACCA exam questions, they apply the own figure rule. So that means if, for example, I said 50 by 80,000 was 450,000, and I then used 450,000 and it led me to get a different answer, because I made it really clear, like I've done here, that will be absolutely fine. Yeah. So if your answer comes out differently because you made a mistake in a calculation, the mistake you made would then be treated as the correct answer moving forward, and you would only lose a mark for that mistake. But you know, it's not all discussion. There is quite a bit to do here, but look how neat I put it down. So if I have made a mistake, it's clear to the marker where that mistake was made. I do subheadings like, you know, if exchange rates fall 10%, this is what will happen. Total profit summary, this is what will happen. Here's the probability, the expected value. So maxi-min, so what? Maxi-min is blue, employees. Maxi-min, maxi-max is green, directors. Neutral, highest expected value is shareholders. Got to work quite quickly on those, but I think, you know, for those comfortable in calculations, that should be quite easy. But do be very aware of your time. So a little bit about maxi-min and maxi-max. And the thing about EV that you hopefully can get across is it will never happen. It's only an average of all the things that might happen. And it's not suitable for one-off decisions. It's only if we're going to do that decision many, many times. And where we're getting all this information from, there's a lot of guesswork. Now, here's the one which required careful reading. Part C said, advisor shareholders are analyzing the external environment using a PEST can help maximize. So it's not do a PEST. How can PEST help? What is PEST? It even said you're not required to produce a PEST, but at that stage, students had turned off and do a PEST analysis. It's, you know, why do external analysis? It helps. Again, I'd bring Crumpet back into the equation. I'd be thinking about, you know, coordination, step back further. If you want to know what Crumpet, why do I plan? Coordination, responsibility for actions can be assigned, utilization of resources can be maximized. We are able to motivate people with a plan. So doing environmental analysis helps planning. Yeah, so if we understand what's going on, we're able to evaluate performance more easily. We're able to communicate to people what's around the corner. There's only 6 marks there, but there's lots. Yeah, and my point is, if you looked at the question, key lesson there, never ever give up. How to scrap in the exam. Yeah, how to get maximum marks, because I'm thinking about, oh, okay, I've got 2, what else can I say? It's like, oh my goodness, what else can I say? Well, I've got 2 out of 6. Well, let's try and get 300% more marks by getting 6 out of 6. And I step back one further and I think about Crumpet. Okay, Crumpet is just a mnemonic to help organize my answer. It's not something I'm going to write down. It's a catalyst to structure my thoughts, but it's going to help me get. Estelle, when should we use mini-max regret? Well, when should you use it? It would depend on risk. Estelle, it's a basic technical thing you need to have a read of. What maxi-min, mini-max, regret. That, you know, this is a kind of revision thing. It depends on your attitude to risk, if I'm honest. So you don't have to use it. It depends on the management attitude. So if you're very gung-ho, you'll be on maxi-max. If you're very pessimistic, you'll be a maxi-min. Mini-max regret is something in between. Yeah. If you go through this in slow motion or pause it, you'll see all my calculations, which will hopefully help there, Estella. One more, and then I'll talk about something else. Well, I think this was a numbers one. Again, it would just to show you the requirements. Using the data in the appendices, recalculate the current year budget to the end of the year and comment on the impact on the expected operating profit, 12 marks. So probably a bit of half-ish for the calculations, half-ish for comment on the impact. And then it talks about, do we move from incremental budgets to rolling budgets? So again, you know, this whole idea of having standard costing and budgeting is very much debated in the broader financial discussion press, because in a modern JIT, world-class manufacturing world, standard costing might not be so relevant. And you as an intelligent APM student should be able to comment and talk about that. Okay, so just to show you, there's a lot of mistake potential in reworking the budget. So you must do it like you're talking to a 5-year-old, so that the opportunity for the own figure rule to be applied is very much there. Okay, so I spell it out really, you know, sales volume goes up 2%, price goes up 1.5% in Q3. You know, in case I made a mistake, it's clear where that mistake was made. And I just go through all of that very clearly, leaving lines, leaving lots of space. I might have got it wrong, but if I did get it wrong, it's very obvious to the marker where my error occurred. Yep. So it's not just the calculations though. That calculations does take a while, but that's probably half the marks. We then need to make sure we summarize and we give some comments on that summary. Yep. We should know what a traditional budget and an incremental budget is. We should be able to comment on them. And if we can do that, we'll be absolutely fine. Rolling budgets as well. Okay. So that, I think, is probably killed you with lots of examples, but hopefully you've drawn on what I've done there. Firstly, on the numbers, I make the numbers very neat. I don't do too many abbreviations on the numbers. If you were doing this maybe as a CBE exam and you did the numbers in a spreadsheet below, I would always refer in my word processing area to those numbers. In the same way I might, in a written exam, do an appendix of the numbers and refer to the appendix. It's about application. Which pasture fatting? Did I not write it down? Okay. If you, all you need to do, Fatin, I can't remember it's a fairly recent one. You put Framlin Tone, ACCA, APM, it will come up. Yep. If you go on Google, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Google, but Framlin Tone, ACCA, APM, boom, it will give you the in fact, I'll show you exactly. No, I won't. No, I won't. Sorry. I've made a bit of a, yeah, I might mess my screen sharing up, so I'm not going to go onto the internet, but that's all you need to do. May I know, Jolin, what's the difference between activity-based budgeting, activity-based costing, and activity-based management? Well, activity-based costing is something you would look at in PM, and it will feed through to APM, where the syllabus has more of an emphasis on activity-based management. Again, appreciate, Jolene, what's happening. It's to use a standard costing in a more flexible manufacturing is not appropriate because we're not doing the same thing day in, day out. We're more flexible. And to reflect that flexibility, we need to do budgets which are activity based. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to give you another, let's say it's 10:22. Let's give you till 10:30, and then I'm going to look at what we need to do. Let me just share a difference, go back to the screen. I'm going to have a look at what we need to do in the next few weeks. Okay, let me just put my chat panel up. When I move it, it goes. So I will see you. I'll see you in about 8 minutes. I'll see you at 10:30. Okay, so quick cup of tea, quick break, and then we'll finish off with the final session of what we need to do in the next few weeks. Lisa, I'm answering you. So I will attend a computer-based exam this time. I have never done CBE before. Any tips about what I can do to prepare? Any suggestions about what differences I need to notice compared with paper? Personally, Lisa, I think it's actually a little easier to do a computer-based exam because you can copy and paste your requirements into the word processing section. You can do calculations more easily using the spreadsheet. PCB will be shorter than the paper 15 minutes. Okay, I'm not 100% on that one, but yes, I'm sure it'll all be explained. I think the key thing to do, Lisa, is there's some amazing resource on the ACCA website. You should really be practicing your answers using the response area that has the strategic professional response area for computer-based exams. As you get closer to the exam, there's at least 2 practice papers which you can do to time and get used to the functionality of the, you can go on there as well and assign yourself questions. It really requires you just to do a bit of playing around. So you just need to you need to just get used to it, just go and swim with it. And it's actually, I think it is to the benefit of a student rather than to the detriment. It's the same exam, you're just typing it, and you probably in the workplace type, you use spreadsheets in the workplace. So therefore examinations are being conducted that way. So yeah, that would be, you know, really, you cannot be getting on a computer-based platform for the first time in the exam. You need to make a few mistakes, Lisa, before you go to the exam by looking on the ACCA platform. There's loads of resource. The ACCA have brought forward their CBE assessment, mainly because, you know, enabling students to do this maybe at home and stuff like that. And yeah, Lisa says, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's available. If you put me on the spot, I wouldn't like bet 100%. PH Lau says exam time is shorter. Lisa says it's 3 hours, 15 minutes. It will be very clear on the website, would be my point. Okay, is that okay, Lisa? Have I explained that clearly enough for you? Yeah, there's lots of information there, loads of information for you to work through. So anyone else doing a computer-based exam, you must go through all the great resources available on the ACCA website. And again, for some reason, students choose to ignore all the great stuff on the ACCA website and look at unofficial, dodgy online tuition courses which have no approval by the ACCA. So keep away from those, please. Okay, right. I want to finish off by what you need to do in the next few weeks. Yep. This is probably the most important part of the whole session. Some of us seem a little bit obsessed with the numbers and the specifics and the minutiae. It's about the big picture, gang. It's the big holistic picture which you need to understand. And when you understand, you can apply it. So what do we need to do in the next few weeks? Well, the first thing you want to do is you need to read my articles in Student Accountant magazine if you haven't already done so. I've spent a lot of time putting together a series of articles which talk about how to organize yourself in quite a lot of detail. I'll summarize some of it here, but there's lots of detail on that on the ACCA website. So make sure you do that. I've got an article on using the power to visualize to motivate you. So if you're struggling a little bit with regards to your motivation, have you thought about why you want to pass this exam? Yeah. I mean, just tell me yourselves, why do you want to pass APM? What are you doing APM for? Give me some reasons. Come on, tell me now. Why are we doing it? What is the reason? Come on, guys. You just because you're doing it. because that's not going to get me out. Knowledge. So I'm doing all this work, Chen, to get more knowledge. That's very, very commendable of you, but that wouldn't get me out of bed in the morning. You want to become a leader. Why do you want to become a leader, B? Galaxy Notes, just doing it because it's interesting. Well, there's lots of interesting things, mate. I think there's a lot of easier interesting things. I want to move away from audit and get into a management role. Now we're talking SAYAS 1. Okay. And why do you want to get into a management role? Why do you want to be a management consultant, Kelvin? Why? Okay, Eileen, you want to be but why do you want to be a certified accountant? There's got to be more to it than I want to be an accountant. You want to manage and help people, BH Lau. Okay, I like that. Guys, you know, I don't know how you managed to do this without some kind of driving to get my pay increase. Thank you, Mayaji. What you're going to do, you want to get the Ferrari. Well, if you want the Ferrari, get a picture on your wall of the Ferrari. Go to the Ferrari dealership, sit in it, smell it. You're going to have it. Yep. Honestly, you need something, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be materialistic like a Ferrari, but you know, you might want to go and travel. You might want to leave Malaysia or Singapore and go somewhere else. If you want to go somewhere else, where? Put a picture on the wall. Yep. Really important. Really important. So, yep, I think you definitely need to do that. Dare to dream. Action proves everything. Kelvin, there's nothing for nothing in this life. Yeah, you don't get anything for nothing. You have to put some work in, just a little bit more work. Really, the payoff is massive. You just have to listen to what I've said. You have to organize your life, and the payoff is huge. Yeah. And you need to focus your attention in the way I'm suggesting you focus your attention. Please, gang. Motivation is key. Yep. How do we plan out? Have we got our lives planned? Are you, I would expect now, be going to bed at the same time, getting out of bed at the same time, have our lives structured. So we know when we study, we know when we play, we know when we exercise, we know when we relax, we know when we work. Is that happening in your lives? Because if it's not happening, you're out of control. And if you're out of control, you're not going to be performing as well as you could do. All right, so please read these articles. They're on Student Accountant. You've got to read them because I've written them to help you. I've not written them for fun because I like writing. I'm writing them to make sure you pass the exam. Okay. All right, Chen wants to make the world a better place. Well, that's lovely, Chen, and you are a much nicer person than I am, and that's great. As long as that's motivating you, that's fantastic. Technical roles, to be honest, B, I do work with finance teams around the world, and technical roles in 10 years' time will hardly exist. Okay, you might have the odd tax and treasury expert, but most of the technical stuff is going to be done by a machine. That is not to say that the accountant's future is dead. It's just changing and is more interesting. Yep. So read those articles, get your brain in the right condition, get study fit. What do I mean by getting study fit? Well, what I mean by getting study fit is you need to get your brain in the right condition. You need to understand how your brain works. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Do you work better with food or without food? Have you thought about these things? Because they impact on your performance. Yeah, think about successful athletes. They have all of this under control. They don't just spend their time training and doing lots of exercise. They don't just spend their time doing, you know, questions in the books. They also get their mental state right. Yep. And you need to work out times in the day when you work and when you play, because that's going to maximize your performance. So think about, when do you work? You probably have a job, many of you, so that obviously takes time up. So when do you work? When do you study? Have you worked out when you study? Morning, afternoon, late at night? Really important that we have a whole circle of balance. So we need to exercise. Exercise is really good because it produces endorphins and that helps overcome stress. And when do you relax? Have you considered relaxation and when you do it? All of these need to be in your control. To have them in control, you essentially need a plan. Do you have a plan? This is rhetorical in the questioning, but if you don't have it, you're not going to be as good as you can be. Okay, so to help you be as good as you can be, you need a plan. What am I going to be thinking about in the next few weeks? Well, in my plan, what I'm going to be thinking about is prioritizing my tasks. Yeah, and when we talk about prioritization of tasks, I'm able to consider, what is important. One method you might consider, if you've heard of or used, is called the IVY Lee method, where what we do is we do a to-do list at the end of each day, the 6 things we need to do tomorrow, and we prioritize them. Yep. The ACCA study planner can also help. One thing that's going to be really distracting to you is social media. I would get rid of social media for the next 4 weeks and see, is that going to affect your life? I don't think so. But passing your exam is going to affect your life. It's up to you. It depends how committed and motivated you are. But social media in business, in study, is a really divisive, distracting thing, adding not much value. When are you productive? Morning, evening, lunchtime? You have to find that sweet spot and you have to operate, because that is how you're going to be the best studier. Yep. One thing we don't want to rely on too much is our willpower. And we only have so much willpower in the tank. And once it's used, it becomes difficult to motivate ourselves. So try not to rely on willpower. Try to make studying a habit. And that's why I say, go to bed, get up, do it in a certain place, do it for a certain time, and that becomes a routine. If you establish a routine, the routine helps you from procrastinating and helps you be more productive. Again, when's your sweet spot? When's your state of flow? You'll only know this by trying a few different approaches. But that's when you're completely in the zone, you become most productive. Social media is a terrible destroyer of getting in the zone. So think about when you're in the state of flow. You need to write down specific deadlines. You need to have a diary for each day, what you're going to do. You might be breaking that down into small targets, manageable chunks. There's a technique which is linked to time management, I'll talk about in a moment, but it's the Pomodoro technique. So, think about deadlines for yourself. Think about structure for exercising and time management. As I say, Pomodoro is a great thing. And you can use an app on your phone, Pomodoro. And what it does, it makes you work on a task for a set period of time. Probably if you haven't trained your brain to do this, you're probably going to not do much more than 20-25 minutes. And then you have a 5-minute break, and then it starts again, and you do that for 4 cycles, and then you have a 30-minute break. It just gives you structure. Yeah, really useful, and it's a free app available on your phone. There's got to be some payoff, so reward yourself for the efforts you're putting in. Simple rewards like, you've got the afternoon off, like you've got some chocolate. But if you don't have payoffs, your motivation can somewhat be diminished. The other thing that helps in motivation is creating chains. So if you have a target and you reach all your targets, this is used in much more serious habit forming. So people who are trying to get themselves off drugs and alcohol, they create chains that they don't want to break. So, it's now 121 days since I'm an alcoholic, and people, because I've spent 121 days on it, I don't want to break it. Think also about having a 0 day of no work. I know that might sound, but the fact that you put one in the diary makes all the other days probably make you work harder. It's a strong motivational drive because you're going to reward yourself with a 0 work day. Think how to get your energy levels up. This could be music. So it could be hydration. Keep your brain hydrated. Our brain is 80% water. Yep. So play energizing music is really important. Kelvin, I'm not quite sure why we're talking about AI. We're talking about motivation here, which is important. But yeah, the AI is correct. Maybe you put that in a while ago, Kelvin. It's just come up on my screen. Where do you do your study? Because if you study in the same place every day, that sends a signal to your brain, time to study, and it makes your brain more easily study. So study in the same place. It sends a message. It's study time. It's sleep time. It's play time. So try to study in the same place. Try to relax in the same place. That will just condition your brain to behave accordingly. Try to keep your work environment free from distraction, free from mess. Yeah, remove clutter. Think about light. Get rid of social media. I mean, if you really can't do that, which is pretty sad, if you were so addicted to social media you can't turn it off, or you can't get rid of it for 3 weeks, you know, turn it off when you're studying, but it's just distracting. Lots of research shows you go on it for 5 minutes, it's not 5 minutes, it disturbs your whole concentration. There's a great book by Cal Newport on deep thinking. It proves all of that. But hey, it's up to you. Depends how ambitious you are and how much you want this. But I really want to pass my exam. I'm not going to let Facebook, WeChat, and all the other rubbish get in the way. If you take a holiday from it for 2 weeks and see, is your life changed? No. So you might think, well, what actually is it all about? It's just distracting. Yep. Think about the fuel you put in your body. Yep, and the fuel and the way you treat your body. So exercise. Think about you know, simple complex carbohydrates get turned into glycogen. They make you sleepy. So think about brain fueling foods, energy boosting foods to avoid lethargy. Yeah, really important that you do that. You know, think about how an athlete would behave. Okay, so lots of good ideas. When are we going to do them? When are we going to implement these ideas? Well, there's only one time to implement them, and we're going to do it today. Yeah, we're doing it today. We're not procrastinating. We're not putting it off. We are going to start today. We're going to break our study into manageable chunks. That will mean it's much more effective. It might, you know, not be much, but half hours added up together will be much more effectiveness. Look after our brains as well. Keep our brains in good condition, and the way to keep them in good condition is think about there's an app on Spotify for free, depending on what kind of Spotify account you've got, Headspace, and it just calms your brain down. It's a bit like, you know, athletes need to relax and maybe get a massage. The equivalent of relaxing and getting a massage is doing a bit of mindfulness, and there are apps to help you with that. Yeah, so you know, mental health exercise is important because the muscle you're going to be using most over the next 3 weeks is your brain muscle. Really important. People don't, I mean, tutors don't tend to talk about this. Students don't think about it. But if you do some marathon session, your ability to do a marathon session the next day, it's just not possible. It's just not possible. So that's really important. Think about your exercise, think about your diet, and actually have those in the diary. Exercise and diet is in the diary. Yeah, so seriously, look after your brain. Look after your brain. B, well done. B, we'll all give B a big clap because she's just uninstalled their Facebook app. I wonder how long you can go without Facebook, B. Create a chain. You've now gone 2 days. Have you missed anything? Try 3 days. Oh, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. Oh, I don't want to do because I've now lasted 6 days. That's a chain. Yeah, it's distracting. And would you rather be relaxing with friends or on Facebook? Yeah, well, anyway, I'll let you answer that question. Okay. Also, think of resources. Yep, think about professional insights to give you broader understanding into areas of risk, technology. If you want to know a bit more about ethics and Accounting Business Magazine, about data analytics, it's all there. So please look at ACCA resources. Don't look at other rubbish. What else would I suggest? If you want to know about technology, the Professional Insights series gives lots of information in this area. Really good. The examiner looks at it. Really important, I think, also, if you haven't already, to have the prize, the outcome of your hard work. What is your life going to look like when you are a qualified accountant? Does that look good? What are you going to do? Get a picture of it. It will help you when you're not feeling motivated. It will help drive you. Yeah, I think if you don't have that, it's very hard to pass the exam. Especially if you're just an average student like most people are. You need something. You need something. I wasn't a great student, but I passed my exam because I hated my boss. The only way out was to qualify and get another job, and get away from my boss. But the best way to get out was get out qualified so I could move to a much better job. I had good experience with my boss, but my boss wasn't a nice person. So create some prize. Is it a Ferrari? Is it to travel? Is it to make the world a better place? Any of those, but have something, please, something to drive you forward. Okay, so in terms of what we have looked at, we've talked about what performance management is. We've talked about how it links to the more technical orientated performance management. What capabilities do you need to have? Maybe review, this is recorded. Please, if you haven't had a copy of I'll mention it to Joanne and Ryan, but maybe there's a big busy conference, and maybe when the conference is over, you'll get all of these sent to you. You obviously know about the format. If you're not familiar with the CBE format, you must get on the CBE platform. Haven't said much about this because I know most of us aren't doing CBE, but if you are, ACCA have got it all covered for you. And then really important is to get our mental mind in the right place. Really, really, really important that we do that. Okay. So that's really what I want to say to you. I've obviously got time to answer as many questions as you want, but for those of you who are happy, those of you who are going to change or going to take on board some of the things I say, I'd like to wish you all the very best of luck. If I'm going to send some stuff to students on a kind of motivational thing, probably an email every 2 or 3 days in the run up, in the countdown to the exam. And I've created, it's not MailChimp, but it's something like MailChimp. If you go on to www.seanpurcell.co.uk and just sign up for that and tell me, are you doing an exam in September? And if so, which one? Are you doing an exam in December? And if so, which one? And I can, I just have to send one email. I can create a database and send stuff to you. And, it's just between me and you. It's not being sold to any recruitment agency or anything like that. But if you want that, I'm happy to do that for you. I do that for some of my students. So that's there for you, all for free, no charge. Kelvin's already signed up. Good lad. So thank you very much. Keep calm, keep your brain in condition, keep your motivation, keep relaxed, because we're on a marathon now for the next 3 weeks, and we need to be in good condition. We need to be healthy. We need to be able to study. And to do that, we need to have balance on diet, exercise, sleep, waking up. All together will combine for us to be successful people. Okay? So I'm sorry I can't be with you in person because I love coming to Malaysia, but hopefully I will see you sometime soon. And I wish you all of the very best. Check out all the ACCA resources on APM. They're all fantastic. I'm not sure whether this is going to be published on the ACCA website, but it will be available through ACCA Asia, through Esther. Thank you, Sayazwan, for your time, and hopefully it's been useful. Yes, I do have lots of discussion why it has a low pass rate, and it has a low pass rate because students don't read any of the examiner's reports, and all they do is do the numbers, which is actually what's evaluated at PM and not APM. It's about application marg on APM, as I've said all along. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your comments. Appreciate you being here, but it's only really useful if you take my advice on board and do something about it. All right, it sounds good. It's only good if you actually do something. So please, please, please start today, do something. Okay. All right. Well, thanks and best of luck. Get your life organized. There is plenty of time. between now and the exam if you are organized. If you're not working, you've got loads of time, but you need to use it effectively and efficiently. All the best, everybody. We can do it. Exactly, Estella. Get rid of the obstacles. Yes. Only see positives. You want to be able to look yourself in the mirror in 4 weeks and say, I did everything I could. I did my best. No, I wish I hadn't spent 3 hours on Facebook every day. Good. Well, that's a target, Faye. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of positive. Keep that positive going. Write some things on a wall. Keep a journal or something like that to keep you positive. Read my articles on Student Accountant. That's great. So I'd like to thank you for all your comments. I'd like to wish you all the very best of luck. And I'd like to make sure that you follow what I say by looking after your whole body. It's not just about study, it's about exercise, it's about relaxing, it's about your mental health. Balance all those and you'll be really successful. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the session because we're just like sharing the love now. We're not asking questions. So study smart, exactly, Kelvin. Thank you. Thank you. Wants to know the difference between tunnel vision and sub-optimization. Well, tunnel vision is it's like tunnel vision is where we see the question that we think is going to come up rather than the one that's being asked. So it's about reading the question, Chu, and if you read the question once, if you read it twice, brainstorm, mark, focus, like I've suggested, you should be fine. Okay. Alrighty, well, thank you, everyone. I'll stay on a couple more minutes, but for those of you who have gone, good luck. I'll stay on for if anyone's got any extra questions for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, thank you very much. Good luck. Goodbye. Yes, I will, Kelvin. I haven't done anything about, you should be expecting stuff from me 2 weeks before the exam. Just keeping you motivated, keeping you focused. That's all it is. It's not technical. But as I've sort of said, it's as important. RT, can we answer the questions in point form? I think if you play back, you'll see I'm not a fan of that at all. If it's the last question, you haven't got time, well, you should have time because you're following my time management approach. Point form is you're only going to get maximum of half of the marks. That's crazy, RT. So please do as I've mentioned. I don't know whether you're joining late, but I've definitely advised against that. But if it's the last one, last question, maybe. Okay, all right, well, there's 2 or 3 minutes. I think we're okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I wish you all the very best. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of your day.